It's a purple button that says follow. Do me that favor real quick. Every single episode of this podcast is brought to you by Marco V Cigars, and I want to tell you about their 6-step process, okay? Step 1, from the seeds to the 9-foot-tall tobacco plants, every step is monitored by Marco V's agricultural experts. Each tobacco leaf section produces a slightly different flavor, so leaves are harvested in small groups to precisely select the flavor of each cigar. Step 2, leaves from the part of the tobacco plant are hung... God damn it, I can't read, you guys. Step 2 is the curing. Leaves from every part of the tobacco plant are hung in the Dominican and Nicaraguan curing barns. Beginning, the leaves transition into the brown, curled tobacco that you guys see inside of the cigar. Step 3 is the fermentation process. After the curing barns, the leaves are fermented in pylons to remove distracting taste and enhance the purity of the tobacco. The entire process can take up to a year, and that's time well spent in the pursuit of the best cigars in the world. Step 4 is the roll. Each of the cigar rollers has at least 15 years of experience, guaranteeing that your cigar was made by somebody who knows and loves this art. Quality still comes from the hands. Step 5, that's the aging process. Marco V cigars are aged for up to 5 years, allowing for flavors to blend and mature. This final process paves the way for a smooth, unique taste in every Marco V cigar. And finally, it's step 6, the smoke. At long last, the cigars are banded, packed, shipped, and arrive to you to enjoy. Celebrate your triumphs by going to Marco V Cigars and using promo code Extravaganza 15 to save yourself some money. And they always have fast and free shipping as well, you guys. Every episode of this podcast is also brought to you by Tone Vault Audio and Media. Here's the deal. Go to tone-vault.com/JSE and use promo code 15SINGER to save yourself 15% on all their audio products. With them being a sponsor of the podcast, they came in, Matt came down here, helped me rewire my entire system, so everything we're using is Tone Vault products as far as the cables go. Wired up my drum set in the other studio as well, and I couldn't be happier. The quality of these cables is absolutely top-notch. You can compare them to Mogami for a way lower price, and they of course have the same warranty as Mogami as well. So if they stop working, if they get damaged, doesn't matter, call them, they'll take care of you.
To do.
Wow, that was really great. That was really great. Yeah, here we are live.
All right.
Welcome, bud.
Hey, thank you.
We started a little early. I think I had it originally set for 6 o'clock, but I said, fuck it, we'll start about a half hour early. The rest of them can suck it. They'll catch up. Yeah, I'm really curious this shape to see how this works. Am I supposed to just light it like this, or was I supposed to cut it and then light it?
I think I was trying to remember that. I think you cut it a little bit. Yeah. I'm going to do that to see if it lights better.
All right, and I did not do it to see if it lights and expands evenly. Well, thank you, dude. I appreciate you being here, my dude.
Yeah, sure thing.
This is fun. I always look forward to these. Especially with pals. And yeah, man, I fucking love it when you guys bring stuff. Usually I'm the one who I got us beers, I got us fucking wine, I got us a whiskey, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. So whenever you guys bring something, it's like, I know that you guys are into it and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
We can't cheers water, but we can cheers non-alcoholic booze and sodas.
Yep.
So what you been up to? You've been telling me some cool photography stories of some of the shit you've been up to. That hip-hop show you were telling me about. How long ago was that? That seems pretty recent.
That was just a couple of weeks ago.
And without giving away any names, tell people the story you were just telling me, because it's pretty fun.
Well, okay.
I'm not trying to humiliate anybody, but at the same time, lesson already up front, guys. The moral of the story is don't do this. Go ahead.
Well, typically what I'll do, and this has been the way I've been working it since the beginning, since I started shooting professionally about 4 years ago, is that I will give people a few samples. I'll take your pictures, give you a few samples. I do that for everybody. That's my tier 1, actually. Even if you don't buy anything, you're going to get some free pictures from me. And then if you want to buy more, there's several different ways to do it. One of them is you can buy a la carte, or you can go ahead and just buy the whole run. So that's what I've been doing. People have been very appreciative of it. But then I ran into somebody who thought that I should give him all of the images for free to build my portfolio, and bitched me out because I was basically just hustling and wasn't invited, and which we're all hustlers, let's face it.
Yeah.
And I was invited, and thought, okay, I'm doing a good thing, right? Because this is what I've been doing for 4 years, and people have liked it, and just gave me so much shit I had to block him.
Yeah, and it was like you knew somebody who was basically running a large show,
Right.
and that person invited you.
Yes.
You take some pictures for all of the acts,
Right.
but one specifically just takes it and runs with it in a very dark way, man.
Right. And I mean, saying it was illegal, which no, it's public place unless it's posted that you cannot take photos. It is not illegal.
Right.
Plus, I was invited. I'm like a vampire. You have to invite me in, right? So I was invited in, and that, kind of gave me carte blanche, especially when it's the promoter of the show.
Right.
Yeah. So that just wasn't a good time. And it's the first time that has happened since I've started shooting professionally. And I found it really odd that someone would take that take on it.
That's super weird.
Yeah. So yeah, it was strange. Otherwise, though, been pretty busy. It's been nice to start to get back to pre-COVID levels. There's lots of shows going on, and have found some new acts that I'm really fond of shooting. And have Rockfest coming up. I have a tour theoretically coming up. I have a Weekend Warrior tour next weekend.
Oh, nice.
So and that's going to be fun.
Who are you going out with?
Common Choir.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to go out with those guys. Going to do a couple of shows over in Wisconsin and then a show here. So, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I love those guys.
That band cracks me up.
Yeah.
That they became legit. Because my buddy Dusty started that band. And it wasn't supposed to be a serious band.
Really? I didn't know that.
It was like, when Dusty does anything, it's never 100% serious. It's like, it's all about like hanging with the boys, jamming, drinking beers. Like, that's what it's not about like, we're going to go on tour and be famous and fucking make money. And like, it's never about that.
Right.
Like when Dusty's doing it, it's like, no, dude, we're not trying to do that. Let's have fucking fun. Let's chill with the boys, drink some fucking beers and fucking jam and fucking write some killer tunes.
Right.
Yeah, we'll go on tour. We'll do all that, but it's not the goal, right?
Right.
Man, it was like, I don't know when it happened, but yeah, fucking they got super serious after Dusty left.
And they slap. I mean,
yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard
they're
actually
really,
got
really
good.
good. I've been fortunate. I've shot them several times actually, and they're the nicest guys, the warmest guys, and they fucking slap. So when Zach, the lead singer, mentioned that he wanted me to, come on this Weekend Warrior tour, I'm like, sure, this sounds like fun. I can't think of a whole lot of people I'd want to be, stuck in a van with for 8 hours. But these guys, it's like, yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, being stuck in a van with 4 or 5 other sweaty dudes, it's just not a good time.
Yeah.
It's really not. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I love you guys, but I actually thought about this as like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Because I think I'm sneaking up on Stormbreaker's tour bus. They got a thing going in St. Cloud.
Yeah.
Like, I basically know everybody on the bill, all the bands at least. And I think I'm going to sneak up there with them. And then there's another show going on the next night, Dock Rapids, with the Issue. And I might stay overnight with them. And it's like, I feel like I need to do it as I'm slowly getting more involved with the music industry again. And like I'm going to be playing out and doing shit again soon. I definitely need to recondition myself and reacclimate to the smells. Because dude, I'm a pretty hygienic dude. Like, you ever see that meme of their like the hot spots where dudes wash, and it's basically like pits and crotch and nothing else?
And nothing else.
I am the opposite of that. Like, I literally wash in between my toes, and I'll tell you why. It's because when I was a fucking dirtball teenager between 12 and 15, I didn't. And dude, I started having like cracks between my toes. Like when I was a little kid, you'd get that thing in between your ear and your head where that would crack and it'd hurt. And yeah, it's just from not being clean. And so I just developed this like insane shower regimen.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it anymore now. Like, it's not even a thing. And it's not like my showers take fucking forever. Sometimes I take long showers because I enjoy them, but
Right.
yeah, I just think it's hilarious. So, dude, and I wear cologne, I wear deodorant. I like smelling good. I also have a extremely sensitive sense of smell. So, like, if motherfucker's got bad deo or his farts are extra ripe or he doesn't floss his teeth and he's breathing really heavy and you're stuck in the van, like, I smell all of that, dude, and it'll just gross me the fuck out, dude. Like,
you're gonna have a good time.
That's when you catch me. That's when you catch me taking the fucking the windbreaker, so it's not overly hot, and I just put it over myself and just curl up in a ball because I'm tired of smelling y'all. That's what it is. So I go under the tarp basically and just smell my own cologne because it's the only way I can make it to the next city.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got to get used to that again.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to be at that show up in St. Cloud.
Oh no, shit.
So shooting Stormbreaker, and Tomorrow Brings New Blood.
Yeah, I do not recommend, by the way, lighting this thing from the tip. You definitely should probably cut it like you did.
So yeah, mine's worked. So yeah,
because it's just now becoming smokable. For the first, I was like, you just couldn't get enough air in there, but it's pretty good so far.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'll be running because Tomorrow Brings New Blood is downstairs that night at the same bar, and then Stormbreaker is upstairs.
Tomorrow Brings New Blood. That sounds like a hardcore band.
It is.
Hardcore.
Yeah, that's the one that Mike Bloodfist was involved in when he lived here.
Bloodfist.
So now he's off. He's off, I think, in the Carolinas. I think that's right.
Is he?
Is where he moved. So they have a new lead singer, and yeah, they're hardcore. They're really good. So looking forward. I get to hear two of my favorite bands.
Shout out to my boy Quack watching on YouTube. He says, "Entitled people are in the sneakies." Oh, sneakiest places. That's what he said. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy saying?
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, they are, dude. Yeah, and it's always when you're trying to just like do something, because that's when I've run into situations like yours where I'm trying to do something really cool, and in order for me to like do my deal, I'm willing to do things for cheap or for free.
Yeah,
you know, and then you kind of present your deal, and they're like, "Well, what are you getting out of this?" It's like, really, dude? How many times have you actually been fucked over that bad to where that's the first instinct that comes through your head?
Right.
Like, really? Because that's what I think it really is they think you're trying to pull some shit. Like, dude flat out called you a hustler.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Any other
bizarre.
people that ever act like that to you? Any other
No.
people? What about, like, people that have paid and then they just don't like their shit? Any other pain in the ass?
That's not happened. And the thing is, I tell people, it's like, please give me feedback. You get edits. If you find a picture that is like, you know, I really kind of wish it would look this way. I wish it was cropped tighter. I wish it were black and white, which I love black and white photography. I've been getting more and more into it. You know, it's all cool. You know, if you bought the whole package, you know, now there's limits. I'm not going to rework everything 3 times.
Sure.
But if you have some images that I'd really like to see this in this way.
Well,
and
the cropping thing cracks me up though, because anybody can crop any photo on their fucking phone nowadays. So I don't really see the point of like.
Yeah, just as an example, you know, and it may be they want it cropped looser. I mean, that can happen too.
I see what you're saying.
And I have the original,
Gotcha.
Where it's like, hey, I remember that, you know, the drummer was in that shot, you know, or the drummer would be next to me. It's like, was he in that shot? I'd really like that as a group shot, you know. And these are not specific examples. I'm just kind of creating scenarios.
I got you.
And it's like, sure, you know, that's fine. If I have the original material, which quite often I do, because I try to make non-destructive edits, then I can go back and look at it. Sometimes it won't work, but a lot of times it will. So, but no, I tend not to get feedback, which, you know, is also nice. That means that, you know, they keep hiring me. So I think that means that they like what I'm doing, but I am perfectly fine with that.
I know the live photography shit is your favorite. We talked about that last time. What do you think you're best at? Because I also know you do portraits, like some of the work we've done, and then I know you do like newborn stuff and like weddings and stuff. Like most
no weddings.
Oh, you don't do weddings?
I don't do weddings.
You used to do them, right?
No.
Oh,
no.
Maybe that was somebody else though. It
was some other photographer.
Some other random white guy doing photography in the Twin Cities.
There's so many of us. That look just like me. Yeah, we're all no, weddings require a very particular skill set and a very particular eye, and it's not one that I have. And I'm really kind of.
Was it engagement photos or something you did?
I did.
I swear, there's something on your website I saw where it was like it was a couple and they looked like.
Yes, they were expecting, so it was baby on the way kind of photos. So I did that. But yeah, wedding photos, no, because I think you should excel or partner. So what I think I excel at, concert photography. I think I'm pretty good at it. People keep hiring me, so I guess they think I'm pretty good at it. And I keep getting likes and follows, so I think that's what it suggests. Portraiture, I do reasonably well. And I keep working at it. Lighting is always the thing. That's the bugaboo, trying to make sure you get that set right. And I've really been working hard at it. So yeah. But concerts are my first love, and that's what I think I do the best.
You mentioned you just went and got some photos done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you learn as a photographer from being the photography?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Or photographed.
Yeah. The photographed and photographer.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, most certainly. And that was Allentown. Wolftown Media, I think that's right. Alan also does concert photography, but he does a bunch of other things. So he does portraiture, he does weddings, he does video. So he's more diverse than I am. And does a great job at all of it. And so, yeah, I'm sitting there looking and I notice he tends to use a tripod for his pictures as opposed to when I'm shooting portraiture, I don't tend to use a tripod. But it's like, I understand the wisdom of it and I understand why you would want to do that. I'm not sure if that's something I'll do.
What is the wisdom behind it?
If you're looking at recreating a shot perfectly, pretty much, or pretty close to it, then the easiest way to do it is have the camera in a fixed location. So, like, we just did some shots, just to let everybody know. Not those kinds of shots, photo shots. And those other shots come later, I guess. And, I was looking, and I had a really pretty clear idea of where you were, and I was staying in the same position. So I knew that the crops would be relatively the same. Now, if you're on a tripod, then it's going to be basically exactly the same.
Unless your model moves or whatever.
Exactly.
Is that what you call them, models?
Yep.
Or do you call them subjects?
Models. They're my models. Yeah.
You're my subject.
Yes, Neil. Oh wait, that's usually what the photographer does is Neil. It's not usually the subject.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Some of the movie star style or like photographers portrayed in movies, the rock star personality ones.
Yeah.
The shit they subject their models to, they are subject. Fucking the way they torture people.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's, part of that starts to delve into art. Also.
Do you think any of that's really true? Do you think any of that shit really happens? Or do you think that's dramatized so they can write a cool story about a crazy photographer?
Well, I would think that probably behind every good story, there's a grain of truth. So there may have been some. Yeah. Like you hear the stories about, oh God, who was that in The Shining? Kubrick. He fucking terrorized Shelley Duvall.
That's true.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Woke her up mid-sleep, only let her have an hour or two's worth of sleep in a day, so she'd be extra fucked up.
Yeah, and made sure that no one else on the crew was being nice to her.
Yeah.
So basically, gave her PTSD to film, this incredibly believable performance. Talk about non-consensual method acting.
Right.
Yeah. So these days that would never fly.
I'm gonna grab another soda.
All right.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and really kind of, it's like, Jesus, I understand suffer for your art, but not endure permanent psychological damage.
Well, think about, just to stay on the actors thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the basically mental breakdown? Maybe not. Maybe it really is some sort of weird spiritual enlightenment. But basically, Jim Carrey seems like he lost his goddamn mind. After Man on the Moon, when he was impersonating Andy Kaufman. He did it for so long.
I heard that.
Dude, watch the documentary about making Man on the Moon. The documentary is as good, if not better, than the actual movie itself.
Okay.
And that fucking movie is amazing.
Yeah.
And the documentary about making the movie is even better, I think. If not better, it's definitely as good. And yeah, I mean, that's why Jim Carrey hasn't really done anything since then, because he basically had an existential crisis, kind of forgot who he was, because he had gotten so into being Andy Kaufman. He, like, literally, some people say it's a psychotic break, some people say it's spiritual enlightenment, but he really started to, like, have issues with who was Jim Carrey. Like, he wasn't even able to identify his true self anymore. He was this weird, being that was just there, and fucking is what it is, man.
Well, even on less serious roles, there was a story back from Christopher Reeves, may he rest in peace, when he was playing Superman. And, he was being Superman, he was flying around, he was stopping trains and blah, 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 blah. And apparently a piece of scenery broke away and was coming toward him. And he said he almost put out his hand to stop it, thinking, I'm Superman. So, and of course, if it had happened, he would have had a catastrophic injury long before he had his other catastrophic injury. So yeah, it happens. You get lost in the role.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But then you do have those wild feats of strength with, like, women and their fucking kids are trapped under a car or some shit. Some chick will lift up a 2,000-pound vehicle. Like, that's where it gets really trippy, is when that shit really does happen. And it's kind of the opposite scenario, right? Like, we're talking about people, like, getting convinced or losing their self-identity, and then somebody actually identifying some weird super strength just for a moment. But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, dude, fucking.
Yeah, I don't think it would have ended well for Mr. Reeves.
Who knows? What if he summoned that mama bear strength? It stood there like actual Superman.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, not us anymore. His problems are over.
Apparently. God, he really was like America's fucking superhero for the longest time. And then who do you think took the throne from Michael Keaton with the Batman role for the longest time? Had to be, right?
Yeah.
Because it was kind of Lou Ferrigno and Christopher Reeve for the longest time. That's pretty much all you had on TV. I mean, I guess you had Adam West, but that shit was so fucking campy.
Yeah. It was great, and they're fun to go back and watch. If you haven't gone and watched an original Batman, the live action with Adam West, it's really funny.
They are. And I think they were intelligently funny back then. Now it's just campy funny, but back then it was like kind of cutting edge. Like there's a little bit of racy jokes in there, and what I mean by racy are sexual, not racial. We used those words differently back then. Racy literally meant kind of sexual.
I still thought it did, but okay.
I do too, but the way people hear things now, you gotta borderline order a trigger warning for every fifth sentence.
Oh,
nowadays.
Crap, you didn't have that before we signed on?
I should permanently record. I should permanently record a trigger warning before we start the show.
We are not, I won't say we're not responsible, but warning, weird shit may come out of our mouths, and that's kind of what it is.
Oh, for me, it's more of a warning, weird shit's definitely coming out of my mouth. I did put a disclaimer in the show description, like if you go to the actual about on the YouTube, it's like Jared's opinions do not reflect his guests, and his guests' opinions do not reflect Jared, and all parties reserve the right to change their minds and opinions later. So basically, don't fucking hold us to any of the crazy shit that comes out of our mouth on this podcast.
Thank you for that.
Most of the time, we're just bullshitting.
Yeah, because I remember that last time. It's like, okay, well, yeah, these drummers are the least talented members of the band, and I got it.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow too, man, because it's like somebody's got to be, and it's usually me. Like I'm usually the shittiest musician in a given band. And it sucks, but yeah, because they're still good musicians. That's the other crazy thing.
Yeah. But it was like, okay, I want to work with these bands again.
Yeah, and the sad thing is it wasn't really even speaking down about those guys. I was really talking about how great everybody else in that band is. It's like, that dude's that good, and he's the least talented one. And if you had to rank him, in my eyes, which means like those other guys are just that insanely good, you know.
Mondo, yeah.
Like, man, I wonder if we did that with the old Epicurean lineup, where because everybody also has their own opinions, right? So
Yeah.
like if you ask fucking John Gensmer who the most talented people in Epicurean were, he's probably not putting himself at top. He's
Right.
probably going to put himself at the bottom, which is ironic because you turn around and ask the guitar player, John would probably be at the top. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's completely arbitrary, but yeah, you kind of made me feel bad about that one for about a day. And then I was like, fuck it. Nobody watches my stupid podcast anyways.
You mean your ones of followers? Yeah, I feel the same way.
The tens. No,
Yeah.
we're doing well. We got a few hundred on YouTube now and a couple thousand on the audio side if you
Cool.
add up all the platforms.
Uh-huh.
It's a little frustrating, but it's hard to complain at the same time because
Right.
I know other people that are struggling more than
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. I feel like you definitely get what you put in as well.
Right.
Probably the same with your career. Like as long as you're consistent with it and you keep going, you'll keep building momentum. And I lost a lot of momentum when my dad went to the hospital over the summer.
Right.
I had to scale back the podcast schedule. The album never really even got started, let alone got finished for my music.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of now figuring out how to balance all those things in this new version of my life. So
Yeah.
you're slowly starting to see that momentum pick back up again. I mean, there was literally a period of 30 days where we actually lost subs. Like our number went down in a 30-day period, and that you want to talk about depressing. It was like, oh, buddy, that's a tough one. But it's really difficult when you're not already legitimately famous and you're trying to start something like this because you're just building this community and this culture show by show, episode by episode.
Right.
That's one of the things I thought would be cool about having you back on is because it seems like you and I, and I'm not saying we're the same age or even in the same generation, but we're not of the young kids generation. Neither one of us are.
I sure as fuck ain't.
Right? Right? But I've had this pointed out to me that, you know, and they even kind of, I'm not saying you're old, Jared, but you're like definitely the only guy from the older generation that comes and see the young guys play nowadays.
Right.
Like, really? And it's like me, and then it's like you. Because all the other guys that are still involved, they just go see the old bands. When those, like, they're not interested in going seeing none of these young dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate because, like, that's, I think, where the real talent is right now. Guys my age, we're getting a little old. We're starting to get washed up. We don't move around on stage like we used to. Like, a lot of us are jaded. Some of us are just over it.
Yeah, but there's still those of us who, you know, have passed the age of 25 a number of years ago that are involved. I mean, you have Greg Chilton out there who's still at it.
He's one that's not seeing the young bands like you are. He's not going out of his way. He's not going and seeing as many rock bands and other stuff. He'll fuck with the hip hop scene a little bit more, but it's kind of like that's his deal. It's like metal and hip hop. Whereas like you and I, we're kind of all over the place. Like we'll gotta go see any of these bands, and I'm not talking shit to Greg Chilton because you're right. Greg Chilton's probably the only other one I can think of.
Yeah,
that's out there actually doing that. I guess Dave Rubin does it a little bit. But again, he sticks with a very niche thing. Like he's into the gore metal, basically, is what I call it. Like the scary shit. Like, dude, some wild, dark shit, man. I had him on the podcast, man. He is an interesting cat. He is super chill. And I noticed that about most of you guys as photographers. You're some of the most chill dudes on the planet. Is that something you've also noticed with fellow photographers?
Pretty much. Unless you fuck with our equipment. That's about the time you get us riled up. Or, you know, you have someone that punches you in the eye. Like that happened in between the last time and this time. And doesn't say sorry. You know, even if they'd said sorry, that would have been something. I don't think that happened.
Tell people that story, because I know what you're talking about, but I don't think other people do.
I went to a house party. Yeah, that must have been because that was during COVID. And so we were down there, hot as hell. I mean, literally, we're packed cheek by jowl down there. And I was down there shooting Inflict, actually, doing still work for them, so doing photography work for them. And then Austin had asked me to shoot, I believe it was Waste is the band that was down there. They were the headliner. And so Austin has, you know, if you don't you don't know Austin Schurisberg, great videographer. So, and on occasion I'll do camera work for him to shoot video. And so he handed me this big ass camera with this big ass lens that cost more than my car. And he's like, okay, aim it at these guys. So I'm like, all right. And at the beginning of the show, I remember this, and I think it got jinxed because the lead singer said, oh, there's cameramen in the audience, please watch out for them. And so I filmed the first song. At the top of the second song, wham, I got hit in the left eye, like hard, like felt like I ran into a brick wall hard, to where I had to go sit down because it's like, oh shit, this really hurts. And no one said anything about it. And I'm kind of used to in this scene, maybe they didn't know. It just seems weird. My face is not a brick wall. You would think that you would have noticed, oh shit, I hit somebody. But it's the first time that someone hasn't gone, oh, sorry, if they run into you. So that's basically that story. But I sold that image. The image, if you look at, I think it's Alien Gods by Depotech, and you look at the cover of it, and it's a picture of a green creature with a black eye. That's me.
Really?
Yeah, I sold that image to them for their album cover.
So you monetized it. Good for you.
Fuck yeah. I mean,
that's awesome.
Because a real black eye, you can create it with makeup, but it's really difficult. Sure. And it's like, how often am I going to get this kind of opportunity? So I took a picture of it, and I fucked around with it color-wise, and I played with it. And the dudes from Depotech saw it, and they thought it was dope, and they bought it.
That's super interesting because, I think I remember you making a post about this a while back. Yeah. Actually, like, hey, you guys have any ideas for album covers, stuff I could shoot, or you want shot, or maybe something I've already shot.
Yep.
And I started to think about mine because my album, I'm gonna call it The Rising Tide.
Uh-huh.
Kind of based on that phrase, "The rising tide raises all ships." Something I've talked about a lot on this podcast. And I'm genuinely sincere about that. The better you do, the better the bands do, the better the bands do, the better I do. The better I do,
right,
the bigger platform I have for you guys to come on and advertise and plug your shit to more people. So y'all, it's cyclical, man. And I was like, well, I don't know, because I don't even know what I see in my head for that album cover. Right. But I do see something mildly literal, like something with water or like a storm or a monsoon or something. Mm-hmm. So I was like, God, is there a way Bud could go up to like Duluth and get some of those crazy waves coming and bashing against the rocks at the port?
Right.
You know what I mean? And maybe like try to get like the old lighthouse in there. And I was like, I don't know, man. It sounds like a lot of fucking bullshit. And then right before the podcast, we were talking about composite shots and shit like that, and Photoshop, and I'm like, man, maybe that's how it would be done. Is, take the shot with the fucking lighthouse in there, you get the crazy waves, and there's probably some fucking heavy graphic design going on in there too.
Well, and you can fuck with the colors. There for a while, I'd taken pictures. That was in Mexico. I was down at Playa del Carmen, which is a shithole, by the way. Don't go there. That is my anti-plug.
What makes it a shithole, Mr. Trump?
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you that story.
Please do.
Yes. Back in, I think it was in the 70s, Mexico decided to create Cancun because Cancun really wasn't a vacation destination. And Mexico said, hey, we have this place and we can make it a vacation destination. And they spent a lot of money on it, and they did, basically. Playa del Carmen, by proxy, because it's the next town down from Cancun, also benefited from that. Even Tulum, which is even further, it's a tiny fishing village, or it was, back 30 years ago. And now there's like East and West Tulum, and there's all these luxury residences and such. This was all created. This was all a plan to increase tourism from the Mexican government. And good for them. A lot of people go down there. A lot of people like it. I'm used to Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta was a place. It was a place that had a cultural history that had a lot more of its own identity before it became a popular tourist destination. Cancun I can't speak to Cancun. Playa del Carmen, this tells you, the most popular thing to do in Playa del Carmen is to walk down a street with a bunch of stores, pharmacy stores, tequila tasting places. There is nothing cultural about it. And have people badgering you to buy their shit. That is the best thing. If you watch any video on Playa del Carmen, they'll talk about Avenida Cinco, that it's Fifth Avenue, and they make that out to be the best thing ever. And it blows. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
I was so glad to leave there. It's like, okay, we gave this a try, wanted to look at something different than Puerto Vallarta, and yeah, never again. Never, ever again.
But you're down there shooting some photos?
Yeah, trying my hand at a bit of street photography. That's a talent I'm interested in developing, but you have to have people on the street to do it. It's kind of hard to do that when it's, 80 below outside with the wind chill factor.
Right.
The people outside this then becomes post-mortem photography because everyone is frozen to the pavement.
Right.
So yeah, going to Las Vegas in a few weeks, and I'm hoping to take a new lens that I purchased. Yeah, I know. Surprise. I bought a new lens.
Yeah, you photographers are real gear.
We are. I know we are. But I found one. It's not a pancake lens, but it's a very short lens, very short 35 millimeter, which is pretty ideal for street photography. And the best thing that they tell you to do is know what you're shooting with intimately. So you don't even really have to look at the screen to compose the shot. You just aim and shoot is one of the better pieces of advice I've seen. So I'm going to start working with that. And what better place than Las Vegas?
So what were you doing in Mexico, though? You were talking about messing with the colors when I was talking about shooting water and shit.
Oh, yeah. So I took a picture. I took pictures out, over the bay. Yeah, it would be the Gulf at that point. And I took them and I started messing with the colors. And there was like the beaches on Aldebaran or something like that. But basically making them look very otherworldly and spacey kind of stuff. So I was thinking, how the hell did we get to there? Oh, Jared remembers. So you can take something that's a perfectly ordinary looking picture and you can make it pretty damned wild. And as we talked about, another lens that I just bought, it's called a Petzval lens, and it gives you this swirly exterior, swirly bokeh, essentially. And it's going to be good for some wild ass shots.
Interesting.
Even the Fever Dream lens, which I bought a few months ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because like we all as artists have like our tools, right? So like I have guitars and drums and shit like that. It seems like your guys' tools are the only ones in any craft of art where you're going out and using them in the world. Right? So like when an artist gets new paintbrushes or a new setup, they go into their studio and they paint. Yeah. Right? Like they're creating a single piece of art right there.
Well, some go out.
They also create it from scratch, though.
True.
Right? Like there's nothing on the canvas. There's nothing to start with. Musicians, same thing. We take our guitar and we go to our studio and we write songs. Yeah, you could go be a street performer,
right?
But you're still like creating this art from literally nothing. Much more comparable to like, say, fucking comedy, where they create a joke from essentially an idea. Just probably cracking himself up at the coffee shop. You guys, though, you go out there and there is no creating an art without some sort of collaboration from either another person or the world or even a building or nature. Like you see what I'm saying?
True.
That's what I mean by that.
I get
like,
it. Yeah,
there is no singular form of art. You are capturing something else that already exists.
Right.
And that is the art, is the way you're looking at it and the way you show other people in that
This is true.
That's what I was getting at.
I
think that's super funny and super interesting. Funny in a good way because it's like very unique to that art form versus anything else.
Yeah, it's a reflection on how I interpret the world, basically. When I'm looking at stuff on stage and I'm looking to catch badassery, by the way, you can see great examples of that at www.bilphoto.com.
Nice.
You mentioned plug earlier, and it's like, oh, I need to do that. You can see basically everything I have done. It is all posted there.
Smooth on the plug.
Thank you. So But when I look at what's going on stage, what I'm capturing now, everyone else may see it, but they see it just slightly differently, and it's my job to catch it, refine it, focus it, and then deliver. This is my vision of what Wilson from Corsair was doing when he was beating his bass like it owed him money. So just as an example, or when Chris Sale from Stormbreaker has that little vein that's popping out at his neck, I watch for those because that's the kind of detail that makes it interesting, and that's what I'm noticing. Yeah.
Fucking John Wogan, lead singer for a band called Banehinge back in the day. When he would go up there and sing, he would get this fucking vein in the middle of his forehead. And,
so I'd be all over that.
And I had already gotten over like being the guy who loves being front. I'll still do it now to go fuck with the guys on stage. Like, I don't know if you ever see me up there at shows, but I'll walk up with the new kids because some of them don't know. And I'll walk up and I'll wait till they're about to step on their pedal to switch parts of a song, and I'll drop the keychain right on top of their foot. And they're like, I got you. That's pretty much it. Like, I go up there to fuck with them, maybe give them a little knuck dab so they know I'm there. Because sometimes I can't stay for the whole show. Sometimes I'm coming to see the band. Like, they're there. I want them to know I'm here so they don't think I blew them off. Boom, acknowledge. Then when they're done, I don't have to bother them while they're tearing down off stage. I can just leave and go to the next show. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
They got a job to do that night. They don't need to say hi to everyone.
Precisely.
Sometimes I'll hang out though.
If they're going to say hi, I mean, not that we're not fans, but pay attention to the fans. I'm doing my job too, and my job is to stay the fuck out of your way.
Right. And if you're a big fan and they know you, like, don't do that to them every show. Let them spend time with other people who are just meeting them and seeing them for the first time. Like,
exactly.
You'll get your time next time because they recognize you.
Yeah.
They'll hang out at the next show, right? Chill the fuck out. But I used to make sure, like, when Banehinge went up, I would weasel my way right to the front so I could stare at John because he'd bend over and sing to the crowd, and that fucking vein, I'm telling you, man, would pop out like what seemed like a half inch out of his forehead. It was so fucking big, dude. It was wild. And I always just wanted to reach out and just poke it while he was screaming, 12 inches from my face. I just always felt
I
so
boop your vein.
Yeah.
I boop your vein. Boop.
I never did it because the way he was built, like, even dudes twice his size wouldn't fuck with him. He has a big, deep voice too, and he's just built the way he looks. Everything about him, his shaved head, beard, thick boy nation. Like, nobody fucked with him. Just like even dudes that were twice his size were like, I ain't fucking with that dude. So I sure as hell wasn't. Even me. I wasn't gonna walk up and boop and poke that little vein, but damn, I wanted to every time I seen him play.
Hopefully he watches this, just to let you know.
How many times, because we're talking about catching badassery and catching cool shit, how many times are you like trying to catch somebody doing something cool? Because that's what your job is, right? We talked about that quite a bit, even on the last podcast.
Yeah.
But how much of it is also trying to get rid of their horrible awkwardness and just get something salvageable? Because a lot of musicians, they're just not meant to be on stage. Like, a lot of times when we go see bands, and I'll say this with confidence, there's a reason 1 out of 1,000,000 of us actually make it. And I'm talking about bands, like 1 out of 1,000,000 bands really, truly makes it in this world.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that is because out of those 1,000,000 bands, maybe 1 out of 100,000 of you are true rock stars on stage.
Right.
That's fine, because you don't have to be a true rock star. I mean, fucking, there's plenty of guys that are successful musicians that aren't true rock stars on stage.
Right.
But like out of that 100,000, like 99,000 shouldn't be there. Like, they're just awkward and hard to watch. And what I mean by this sounds like I'm being a real big dick, but reality is we all know there's a lot of shitty bands out there. And I guarantee you there's 100 shitty bands for every 1 good band. Like, we just happen to be in Minneapolis where there's a lot of really good bands.
A lot of talent.
It's not like this everywhere else.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, because I'll go to shows even now where I'm like, they got to get rid of that dude. Like, he's unwatchable on stage. And I don't care if he's writing all the music. Then this whole band needs to quit and go start something else without him. Because there's enough good songwriters around. That dude is distractingly bad.
Let me give you an archetype.
Okay.
The bass player. The stoic bass player. the bass player that stands there, stock still, legs spread, same stony expression on his face for the entire set.
So metal bass players.
It's an archetype and it's a stereotype, because I can tell you, I see lots and lots of bass players that move and dive and spin and are just all over the fucking place. Highly entertaining to watch. Tanner Keegan, I think, is probably my gold standard for that.
And I just want to be clear, I don't think you have to be obnoxious on stage, like literally moving and running and spinning and jumping and flipping and kicking. And,
right.
Like, at a minimum, be Joe Bunrud from Revenant Soul.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes.
Like, he's not crazy on stage, but he is having so much fun.
Good. Exactly.
And even when he does, like, look stiff, it's on purpose. It's part of, like, this weird thing he's doing, and it looks cool. The end product looks cool as fuck. He's a great performer.
Great performer, and Jesus, when I was watching carefully, because I used to play bass, photography kind of consumes everything. So
I think we talked about that
we did
last time.
But I was watching, and at that point, Casey was part of the band. And I started watching what Joe was doing with his fingers. And he was shadowing Casey's bass on bass. And Casey's little fingers move. It's just phenomenal to watch him work. It's like Joe is copying it note for note. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I think I even know what part you're talking about.
Yeah. And just incredible. So when I run into somebody who's a little awkward on stage or have that kind of stoic mentality, I start to look for what are things that can make them look cooler. And I also recognize, showmanship is a hard thing. It is a separate talent from music. It really is. Oh, yeah. Some people are born to it. And
that's
some
why
people,
we've differentiated the idea from singers to frontmen.
Yeah.
Like, he's a front man. Like, that. He's a fucking showstopper, that guy right there.
And they often coincide, but they don't always.
Yep.
Yeah, because sometimes it is someone else. Like in AC/DC, Brian was the lead singer, but it was Angus that was the showman. True. Doing all of his little Chuck Berry stuff all over the stage. Yeah. So whenever I find somebody who's a little awkward or really just kind of standing still, I watch them more closely. Because it's very rare that you're going to find the person that absolutely is a statue for a complete 60-minute set or 50-minute set. You're going to see micro expressions. You're going to see times when they do get lost in the moment. And you have to watch for it. And that's what I really work at doing. And the other thing is I look for the interplay of lighting. Lighting is, if you have good lighting, you get a lot. Because that technically becomes another member of the band. It enhances the show. And if you're lucky enough to have a good light show, it's easy even to take someone that really is standing stock still for the entire set. It's easy to enhance their badassery because they have this cool interplay of light over their face or their instrument. So it's really just knowing what to look for. Looking for micro expressions of the face. So you have to watch them a little more closely. Some people, or a lot of people, are a lot more overt. And sometimes it just takes a little observation.
And if anybody's curious why I'm asking this, is because I've seen and been in bands with those dudes where I'm like, this motherfucker's shit. Like, he's so good, but I'm watching us on stage. And I got to figure out how to, like, teach this dude how to look cool. Like, because just the way he moves his body, it's fucking hard to watch.
Right.
And I can tell it's pure, in my eyes, I'm talking about one of my former band members, or many of my former, like a hypothetical situation, right? Because I've had one or two of these dudes in every single band I've ever been in. Because, I wasn't famous. You know what I mean? So you don't choose this dream lineup from day one. You kind of take who you can get and who wants to be there, and it's this crazy combination that you're looking for. And
grab the other beer.
I've seen guys see a great photo of themselves on stage where they truly look cool. And I've watched guys completely like bloom like a flower and come out of their shell and develop more confidence because now they've seen themselves look like an actual genuine bona fide rock star. Now they believe they can be a rock star. And it's crazy because it's something like this, like what we're talking about. To get them out of their shell because they're just nervous as hell. And I've watched dudes go from literally being like fuck, man. Basically, let's just say nerds, right? Like weird, uncomfortable, awkward nerds.
That's a lot of musicians.
To being just flat out fucking rock stars acting like they got the biggest dick in the room while they're on stage.
Yeah.
And it started with seeing not only like killing it, right? The band did well.
Right.
They get that adulation, that person to person thing. They get that hit of dopamine, but there's proof because somebody got a great video angle of us all headbanging together and he's in the shot, or somebody took a great photo of him like mid solo or something, or maybe the crowd's cheering right underneath him, and he's just like, it's that sense of empowerment and confidence that some of us have never gotten before we stepped on stage. And so that's why I'm asking those questions, is because I think it's interesting how much you guys as photographers can do for a band. Because again, we talked about this last time, you have mediums like Instagram where I could put my music on Instagram, nobody gives a fuck. I could put a video of my band on Instagram, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
But if it's a really beautiful photograph of us on stage, like just a perfect moment caught, that shit can fucking like really take off on Instagram. And I've seen buddies in bands with it. And it's like, dude, we released this video and this video has like 500 views, but the pictures from the video or from the live set, the videos from the live set, like each one has like 35,000. It's just because they're cool. Yeah. They got a true professional photographer. They paid him.
They paid him. Yeah.
And the best is you were saying about this with advice earlier, like, give me feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I have a hard time doing that in a portrait setting, right? Because I'm like, you're the professional. Here's what I think I want. Let's make it happen.
Yeah,
right? Because I want to be easy to work with in that scenario. Whereas when a live photographer situation comes up, I'm way better at directing a photographer. So I'm like, I know I want these shots. So like, here, check this out. In this third song, there's this part where we all just kind of naturally lose ourselves and start headbanging and almost in perfect unison. If you can get a shot of that, or like be here in these spots, and like, I know this is the aesthetic I'm going for. When it comes to that other shit, I don't fucking know. But my point is like, definitely, if I could give advice when you're hiring somebody, is find somebody who's an actual professional and be very direct with them about what you want, and you will probably get it. Yeah. Like almost exactly what you have in your head will actually show up in frame. But if you're afraid or you want to be easy to work with and you don't assert yourself and you try to go get somebody on the cheap, don't be mad when you're not happy with that result. Right. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of times, I often don't get a lot of stage direction. Which if you have it, that's great. But a lot of people don't. And I think part of it is not having a real sense of how you look on stage because, you're looking out at the audience. You're hopefully looking out at a packed house. Sometimes you're not looking out at a packed house. But, you're kind of focused on all of that. So you don't know what you look like. And sometimes it's until you see some pictures and then you go, oh, can you catch this again? Is there any time that we do this? What do you think? Now, I'm always panning and scanning. And the advantage that I have, that's why I have two rigs. I have two cameras that I use. People think it looks kind of funny. It's like pew, pew, right? But the reason I have that is, let's say I'm up close and, let's say, pew, 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 pew.
That made me laugh way too hard.
Yeah, let's say,
That wasn't that funny, but man, that's me, man. I'll laugh at some shit I will really laugh at some shit that is not actually even that funny, dude. I don't know why, but that really got me.
Pew, 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 okay. Pew, 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 pew. So let's say, let's go.
I've seen you out there with the two cameras, and I've seen you have both of them going at once, like.
Well, and basically what I'm looking at, let's say that I'm pulling a close-up, and we'll use Stormbreaker because that's a good-sized band, right? And I'm doing...
That's a band with great size.
Great size, yeah. Yeah.
Thick.
Wonderful band. Wonderful band. I'm very happy to be... Actually, I'm their official photographer, which I think is kind of cool, yeah.
Nice.
It does not mean exclusive.
Is that new?
Relatively new, yeah. We talked about it, that I'm their official photographer, which is like I'm really happy about. But let's say I'm up close and I'm shooting Logan, right? So I'm getting some tight shots of Logan. But whenever I'm doing that, I have kind of an eye out looking what's going on for the rest of the people. And I may see that, there's other cool things going on. And that's when you see me drop the other camera, pull up, the wide angle, and then I can capture whatever that badassery is, or I can see it
without having to physically move yourself 20 feet,
or having to change lenses.
Oh, gotcha.
So because I don't use zoom lenses,
you can see how little I fucking know about this.
No. It's all good. So it's because I have a wide angle lens and I have a tight lens for focusing on individuals. And sometimes it is like I'm changing cameras while I'm moving 3 steps over to get a better shot of everybody. But that's it's kind of keeping one eye on who you're shooting and then one eye off, kind of looking, okay, are they going to do anything badass? And it's not that I'm perfect at it. There have been times that I've been focused on shooting, let's say Logan once again, and I look up and Chris's neck veins are just like, out to here, and I'm like, shit. So you can't be in all places at all times, but
the big guys, right? The big guys like the Metallicas and shit, they have to have like a team of photographers, right? There's no way they only have one guy trying to do that, because it's exactly what you just said. Plus, their stage is enormous, and they gotta have they probably got a dedicated photographer for each member of the band, right?
I think it really depends. It depends on their philosophy. Disturbed would be a good example of. They have like their video crew, and part of it they're using video screens. And I believe they probably do have a team of photographers. But the others is you have a bunch of photographers there. So they may not be your personal tour photographer, but you still can get access to those photos. And that's where, hopefully when people are shooting that level band, they're all really good expert photographers. And so you're going to get a high quality image. And one may be from your tour photographer, and one may be from, the wire services, and one may be from Rolling Stone, and sure. You kind of collage it all together.
What is wire services?
The wire services, that would be like API or Associated Press, AP Associated Press.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So not sure why wire services would be there, but it could be something like that. I think it has to do with
the newswire, right?
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
How
they used to put shit out, which they technically still use now, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Associated Press is still a thing. I think it's
still the fastest way to send information. Like, how is it? Not just Associated Press, but the wire or whatever, the feed, right. the feed.
The news feed.
Yeah, whatever it is. Like, how they get their information, I think they still get it from there. Because that's the fastest way to convey and verify legit information through a legitimate news agency, something like that.
If you look at, of course, the olden, if you look at the newspaper, but if you look at stuff online and you'll see AP in front of it, it means it's an Associated Press article. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of it is AP.
Yeah. And now, like, for regular consumers, the fastest way for us to get that information is either like Twitter or fucking 4chan or Reddit or something like that.
Right.
But I still think they use that same thing. I think that's why they call it the wire. Because as soon as you said Associated Press, I knew exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I've never heard that term before, so that's what they call it.
The wire services?
The wire services?
Yeah, it's a wire service. And it probably is reflective of, how it was started way back when. I don't know, but I bet it is.
Yeah, they probably work like the FBI. They have like the Associated Press has an office in each state.
Mm-hmm.
So any major news event happens, or even a concert or anything that needs to be reported on,
right?
Then they can quickly wire that information.
Usually, unfortunately, when it's going to be the AP, it's probably going to be when there's a bad time happening, kind of like the one in Houston that just happened here not too long ago.
Or sports.
Yeah, sports.
That's the odd thing,
that's
right?
A big one.
Like it's either tragedies or sports.
Yeah.
Sports ball.
Football. Yeah.
Tom Brady threw a record-setting touchdown today. In other news, a whole bunch of fucking people died again.
But let's go back to sports.
Back to sports. Charles Barkley.
And now, sports. What is that? She can tell you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eye. It's interesting when people die. Give us dirty laundry.
What song is that?
Don Henley, Dirty Laundry.
I know.
Got the
what
bubble.
Song is that?
Got the bubble. It's called Dirty Laundry. Got the bubble bleeded. Got the bubble-headed bleach blonde.
I hear
goes on at 5. Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah. That was written before some of your viewers were born, but that's okay. That happens as you get older.
Speaking of sports,
Yeah. Oh God.
Have you seen these memes? You're on TikTok, right?
Mm-mm. No, I'm not.
I
told you I am old. It's like I'm on Facebook and Insta.
It doesn't matter. It's okay because TikTok it's video based.
Yeah,
and you really like. I'm horrible on TikTok because I have no idea what my version of content will be. I could just do clips from my show, which is what I probably should be doing, but I'm not doing anything really. But like guys like you, it'd be cool as fuck because I seen on your website you kind of did. Like at the bottom of one of your pages, I don't remember what it was, but you kind of did a breakdown of like, here's the actual photo that was taken, and here's the different versions, simple versions of what I can do with a photo.
That's on the FAQ page. Yep.
So you could do like TikTok videos where it's you breaking down the process of doing that. Like, here's how you do this, here's how you get this shot, blah, 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 blah. And dude, I'm telling you, man, it's cool because if you do the videos the right way, the guys that, you can verify this. You don't have to take my word. There's websites you can go verify how much people are making on their shit. Basically, what I'm getting at is you could potentially make way more money on the TikTok videos or the YouTube videos or Instagram videos. Because then that's the point is once you start figuring out how to do the TikTok ones, you just switch up the format and the length. For Instagram and YouTube, they go longer for each one. YouTube's the longest, then Instagram, then TikTok. TikTok, some of them, man, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, tops. You can go way longer than that, but that's not what really does well on TikTok. But dude, some of these motherfuckers make way more money on the videos than the actual art that they're creating. And I think it's fucking awesome because it's just another vertical for you to monetize your fucking platform, and you can educate and bring more people up to par. And one of the things, another dude I was talking to, he goes, I've actually learned a lot because motherfuckers will come on my page talking shit and they're right. And he's like, they give me free advice. They think they're trolling me and calling me an idiot, and all they're doing is giving me a free education.
Well, hey,
he's like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I had to Google it.
I mean, they talk about the internet, and of course, there's the conspiracy theory that the internet died in like 1998 or something like that, but that's
and then what replaced it?
Basically shopping,
the Matrix
and,
overlord.
Yeah, pretty much. But a lot of the stuff that I've learned for photography, like I took apart a lens the other day, and you would think, okay, this is a lens, it's kind of a sealed unit, you don't want to fuck with it because here's $1,000 worth of very sophisticatedly ground glass and all of this, and like a little gremlin in there that makes all this shit happen. And you think, okay, how hard is this? It's surprisingly easy.
Really?
Now, you still have to be careful, but the way I learned how to do that and do some of the lens mods that I have, watching YouTube. Yeah, it's like if you have something that you want to know how to do, go watch a few of them, because now it doesn't guarantee the first one's going to be good. That happened with my gimbal. The one from the gimbal manufacturer really sucked.
Really?
And then I went and I found another guy, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And I got it immediately. So it's wonderful for that kind of stuff.
Do you ever watch like Tech DIY?
I don't watch that one, no.
Dude, I watch a bunch of these. It is so fucking rad, dude. These guys can pretty much make anything at home, and they like list all the parts. They'll fucking put the schematics out there. Anything you want, anything you talk about. Like guys will 3D print a new case for their camera because it's getting too hot, and then they'll put in a fucking little mini
like a heat sink.
A heat sink. I think that's actually literally what it's called. But basically, it was like a radiator. It was like the pull heat off
heat sink.
Yeah, I think that is the literal exact term is a heat sink. It's a fucking radiator, but for some reason you call it a heat sink when it's in electronics. I don't know.
God only knows.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think you're right. I think that's literally what they were putting in it. But he had to 3D print a new case because there wasn't enough space. But his camera was overheating. Yeah, he literally just took the schematics. I think he had a program where he took with his iPhone and took like so many photos in a 3D image, uploaded that to this program, and then just literally took it and modified it out by a quarter of an inch or whatever the shit it was. And a 3D printer made it. And the 3D printer he bought to do this on was like $300 on Amazon. It's not even that expensive.
It's pretty amazing.
You know, and he's like, I made this part for 17 cents worth of filament.
Yeah.
The 3D printer I bought years ago was $300, but yeah, it was just like, it's fucking mind blowing, man.
Yeah.
And then they do acoustic panels, speakers, microphones. Like, some of these guys are really impressive, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right, dude. Watch
YouTube.
YouTube.
Great place.
Watch YouTube.
Yeah. And
I wish I was more like that, dude.
And you can find out just about anything. I mean, really, it's like, okay, the lens that I took apart was not $1,000 lens. It's a lens that they made by the tens of millions, well, maybe millions, certainly, over a period of about 50 years in the Soviet Union. They're called Helios lenses. Helios.
They made how many? Like 50 million?
Oh, they easily made millions, because I know the serial numbers where they start, and millions,
Gotcha.
maybe tens of millions.
Okay.
But they did this over 50 years. And basically, like,
are they still being made, or did they finally
they
stop?
are, as to my knowledge, they are not being made anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
But basically, in true Soviet fashion, they ripped off a German design. But they did a very good job of it, and you can find these lenses for $80 to $100 on eBay. And I've gotten several of them, and I've done Petzval conversions, which is trying to make it do what the expensive Petzval lenses will do, the really swirly ones. That's my fever dream lens. But I've learned how to modify the lenses based on that, and not be afraid of doing so. At least not for $100 lens. If I fuck it up, I'm going to throw it away.
Right.
So yeah.
What makes a good lens? Like, why is a lens expensive? It's the quality of the glass.
It's the quality of the glass.
So what makes glass better or lower quality?
You have to have very pure glass with no inclusions. It just has to be very, very well machined. And some lenses are, and some lenses aren't. It also needs to be assembled and there's several different ways that you can assemble lenses, and it's all the engineering to try and figure that out. But the main thing that makes it expensive are the pieces of glass.
Crazy.
But there's like 9, if you think about it, there can be between technically 6. There are some designs that have only 6 pieces. 6 to 14 pieces of these highly engineered precision pieces of glass that would make basically your glasses kind of look like Coke bottles.
Yeah.
Like you just cut out the bottom of Coke bottles and put them on.
Right.
So that's the difference in the engineering. So that's why it's expensive, is because they're very, very precisely engineered.
God.
Yeah, that's what makes them pricey.
The reason I'm curious about all this shit, right, is because at some point in time I have to upgrade my cameras again. And I have to go towards, and I still don't really understand the difference between this, a DSLR and a mirrorless camera.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing that kind of blows my mind is my entire life growing up, video cameras were large.
Right.
They were on your shoulder. They were heavy.
Yep.
They were big. And then they came out with something called the handheld camcorder.
Yeah, the Handycam.
The handheld camcorder was a game changer, because it was basically about the size of the palm of my hand, but it went the other way, and they had the flip out, and you could see what you were recording without sticking your fucking face down this thing, right?
Yep.
It was amazing. It was amazing. But then now cameras that shoot video look like that.
Look like this.
Yeah, they look like,
by the way.
Thank you. They look like, and for the listeners that aren't watching, they look like regular fucking high-end cameras.
Yeah.
Like the same shit that the paparazzi has always used. Like
an SLR.
The only thing is
DSLR.
the lenses aren't quite as long. Like sometimes, it doesn't have like that crazy telescopic. But
right.
Point still stands, right? So then I'm looking at the prices. And fuck, man, anywhere between $250, $300 for like the lowest end, which basically is a camcorder at that point. I think it literally is. It's like a Sony or something like that. But I think the cheapest one you could get for what I would need to do is like $750, and then they quickly go up to like $3,000, and those are all considered entry level cameras. That's what kind of blows my mind. So it's such a wide, and so I know how shit's made. I understand value. So I'm like, okay, so what is it? Is it the glass? Is it this? Is it the machinery? It's all of those things, obviously, but where would you recommend your best value for the lower end of that spectrum for somebody specifically like me, where I'm not going to be taking them out into the field, not going to be doing that, but I do need like a real camera where I can change the lens, right, where I can either manually zoom in, because I already understand the digital zoom is not something I want.
You don't want
I
digital
need
zoom.
an optical zoom.
With some very specific exceptions, but they're on cameras so expensive you don't want to talk about them. There is a Leica system. Leica is like
You're talking about the digital zoom still being good?
Yeah.
I'd have to go way up in price.
Yeah, okay. The Leica, God, I don't remember the name. I think it's the M50. The Leica model that I'm thinking of. And it's a fixed lens camera, mind you. But it has a digital zoom, essentially, that is apparently beautiful, like everything else that Leica does, but the camera's $5,500.
Sure.
So
and I got three of them to buy,
It better include fellatio.
Exactly.
For $5,500.
And a little butthole tickle.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
And all jokes aside, though, I also have 3 cameras to upgrade.
Right.
So I need to be on the most affordable side of things as possible, because I don't have that Joe Rogan fuck you. At best, I got like maybe instead of fuck you money, I have like excuse me money at best.
Actually, you have fuck me money. Like fuck me, that's expensive.
Yeah, it's fucking, it's really funny, but it's also deadly serious. So I got to think about these things, and then the heat sink issue, right? So like this one guy was like, "This is the best camera, but you can't shoot like a real podcast with this. If you're going to be, you get like 30-40 minutes out of it, and then it just gets way too hot." And so he's like, unless you can do the mods I'm doing, probably not the right camera for you yet, because the technology's not there.
And see, video is so different. My old camera, by the way, this is to catch more badassery. This is a brand new Sony A7 IV. Thank you very much for your support. And thank you, Sony, for providing a really badass product. It's a nice camera.
Free plug, Sony. You owe me a $5,000 check for that free advertisement right there.
He's going to split it with me, of course. Or you can just send me another A7 IV.
I was just going to say, you just thanked him for sending you the product, dude.
Send me another one. It will not go unused, I'll tell you. So this one can shoot video essentially indefinitely. They've solved the heat issues they're telling us, right? But the model that I had before this, which is very similar, it's the A7 III, it would shut off video at 29 minutes.
Yeah.
So
and some of them you can go in and turn that off. Yeah. But a lot of them you can't.
Yeah, the A7 IIIs you could not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of,
sucks, man.
You're going to need to work backwards. You're going to need to find cameras that don't have that heat sink issue or problems with overheating. And then it's a matter of looking at the other stats, because that's going to be the most important thing for you. You need something that can run continuously for several hours.
Yeah. Yeah, and then fucking clean HDMI is another big deal. So I can take directly whatever's in there. And that's what I was going to ask you, is in any of those, and this is where my brain was coming from this, so people don't think I'm completely nuts, is when you're shooting like a live shot, right? Because you do video sometimes as well.
Yep.
Do you ever have to prioritize the video over the still shot you want, or do you just try to bring the video over, shoot that, and then pull a shot from the video?
That's a good question. You actually can do that. I don't do that very often.
You would have to have a pretty fucking crazy high-speed cam, right, in order to pull that off?
No, not really. If you think about this...
So how does frame rate... Yeah. So before we get too deep in this, just so I can keep up with you as you explain this, how does your frame rate mathematically equate to the frame rate in video, right? So like, so most things are shot at like 24 frames per second for TV and movies until you start getting into action shit, right?
Yep.
A lot of these cameras just shoot at 30 frames per second for some reason.
Yep.
But when you start getting into action shit, you want to be at like 60 frames per second, sometimes even 120 frames per second.
Exactly. How if you want to slow-mo?
Right. If you want to be able to slow it down and have
120 is
either
necessary.
One. Yeah, either one. So if you want slow-mo or you want that really zero motion blur in high-level sports like hockey is a great example where that puck is going literally, or baseball.
Yeah.
how does that frame rate that I just referenced, how does that equate to that? Is it the same numbers?
Not exactly, but here's how it translates. So you have what it takes in frame rate, but then you have you still have a shutter speed, right? And the shutter speed versus the frame rate will kind of affect what the video will look like. So an example might be, let's say 60 frames per second. That's a standard kind of, that's what this camera can shoot. It can shoot lower, it can shoot higher, but 60 is pretty, if you press video, that's what you're going to get, right? And high definition, although it'll shoot 4K also, if you wish. So if you want kind of a standard looking video, so you're just filming stuff like us, right? You don't want a lot of blur, like see if I move my hand like this, you get some blur. If you want minimal blur on that, you're going to double the frame rate for your shutter speed.
Yep.
So that's going to, and on a camera, they don't have a 120, it's a 1/125th. If you want to make it look edgy, if you want to get it hyper sharp, then you speed up the shutter speed. So 1/60th, or 1/160, 1/200. When I shoot stuff for Austin, who does very edgy looking videos, I'm usually shooting at 1/320th of a second. So what that means, the frame rate is 60. And I don't ask me to explain it much deeper than this because I don't know. But it's still shooting 300. It's shooting it at 1/320th of a second. So when it's taking each of those frames and it's only exposing it for 1/320th of a second. And that gives you a very crisp, hard look. Now, if you want to make it very dreamy feeling, so if you want all of that kind of, almost little blur to things, then you slow it down below double the frame rate. And you can even do it, if you see these scenes where the person's unconscious and they're waking up and it's all this blur where there's people, but they're moving very weirdly and you see a lot of blur, that's because they've slowed the exposure down, the shutter speed. They've slowed it down to like 1/30th or even 1/15th of a second. And so that way, if it's 1/15th, you're going to get basically 4 slices that are all pretty much the same image. And it's the impression it will give you is that stuttery kind of dreamy, blurry feeling.
Gotcha. Okay. And then
that makes sense.
No, it does.
Learn this on YouTube, by the way.
And then because I had to look into this for shooting the podcast too. Because when I was like, well, what frame per second do I shoot at? Blah, blah. It took me a long time to figure out. I do not ever fucking need to shoot at 60 frames per second for this podcast. No. It will never, ever be a thing.
No.
But video games, I do.
Right.
Because my game is at 60 frames.
At least.
I should put my video of me at 60 frames as well. Because otherwise there can be a weird...
Yep.
It does... It and I see it. I see it when I game stream. Stream. I can see it because my Xbox is at 60 frames. But this camera is at 30 and I'm outputting at 30 as well. Just to keep the load on my computer down.
Right.
But...
yeah,
I stumbled across some shit like that too because they were like, you could even go down to 24 because nobody's going to notice the difference between 24 and 30. But here's what's interesting: in Game of Thrones, during the sword fighting scenes, they actually undercrank it, shoot at 22 frames a second, and then speed it back up to either 24 or 30. And you do notice that. That's my point, is you do visually notice that, and it also gives that really edgy look because you're almost speeding it up. And then more research, I found out cartoons are drawn at 12 frames per second.
Yes.
And that's why they have that jumpy, goofy,
kind of feel.
Choppy thing. It's just, I found that
and
that
whole
has
thing
changed. Fascinating.
That has changed. It used to be 30, and then they dropped it to 24, and now you get the 12.
Really?
Yeah. So that has changed. They used to be 30 frames a second.
I thought it was always 12 just because they didn't want to draw more than 12.
No.
Because they had to draw every single frame back then.
Yeah. They didn't used to back when it was cheap to get them done. But as they started increasing the price, as money went up and they were trying to save money, that's when they dropped the frame rate because they had to either hand draw or hand color every cell. Nowadays with computers, it's a little easier, but it's still processing time. It's still money.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that movie Into the Spider-Verse?
I have not watched that one yet.
So people don't think again I'm completely lost my mind. This is all having to do with these frame rates and learning shit on YouTube, right? So I watch these dudes called Corridor Crew, and they basically react to good and bad VFX in movies and TV. And they were talking about these frame rates and how to get these different things, right? And they said in that movie, it's a really good movie, even if you don't like superheroes. Like, you should watch it, even though it's kind of a cartoon. It's
I think I have seen
every
that one.
version of Spider-Man in this cartoon is a different style of animation.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe I have.
It's got this amazing artistic feel to it, and then the little kid that they film in the well, not film, the draw. He's an animated character. He is drawn at 12 frames per second, and it's to make him feel like clunky and jittery and awkward, right? Because he's the kid version. But the older version of Peter Parker is he's completely CGI. So he's really smooth and really polished, and he's running at 24 or 30 frames per second. And as the cartoon version of the kid learns throughout the movie, they bring it up to 15, then 18, and then eventually 24. So he loses that. Dude, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I never would have known that unless you would have explained that to me. Yeah. So thanks to the Corridor Crew. Shout out to those dudes. Yeah, all right. But now I want to actually go back and watch that movie and see if I can notice that, because it makes it more enjoyable.
You will.
When you know there's intent behind all these crazy things. Yeah. It's the Chekhov's gun theory, right? Yeah. Like, everything here is for a reason.
Right. Yeah, you'll notice it.
It's cool, man. It's real art. It becomes real art. You're not just putting a camera on and just shooting shit. Like, there's thought, like real thought that goes behind this shit. And I just think that's cool as fuck, man.
Even there were some series back, and I want to say this was in the 70s, where, and they did this with some Twilight Zone episodes also, where they changed the frame rate from 30 to 24. And if you've run into these ones, they feel very different. To look at something, 30 is more filmic feeling, and more broadcasty feeling. If it's 24, it feels more realistic. And there's a difference between realistic and filmic, very much so. So I remember the first time I saw one that was, I found out later, filmed at 24. And because it felt very like they were almost there in the living room kind of thing. So it was actually kind of bizarre. And then only later did I learn this is why this felt the way it did. But it was very noticeable. Yeah.
Fucking crazy, dude. Yeah, it's fucking cool, dude. The only thing that sucks about getting to know this shit is it also can ruin TV and movies and certain things, because you used to just go, oh, that was cool. And I'm also talking about just still photography too. You're like, oh, that's a really cool picture. And now, like, as I've unfortunately been forced to learn about this stuff, I didn't choose to. I had to. Yeah. Just, for survival reasons. Metaphorical survival, you guys, Jesus Christ. But yeah, so I find myself staring at pictures like, oh, I wonder how they did that, And it's not because I need to do it,
right?
But it's because it's in the back of my head now, and I can't just appreciate the picture or the TV or the or I notice the bad shit. I'm like, oh, that looks like shit. He shouldn't have done this, and I'm like, who the fuck are you? You don't know what you're talking about, Jared. Shut up.
No,
who are you to judge people? But I'm like, I've been taught that's why my eye does not like that. Now I can point it out and explain it. Sucks.
No, I get it. There's and I don't know if I shared this story last time, but how I got into professional photography. I mean, buying rigs like this, and going out and really working on my craft. I was starting with a very expensive point and shoot. That's a very good one. If you need it for a fan cam, it's great. But basically, I went and I shot a show, all 4 inches. You have to laugh. You love that name.
I love that fucking band name. So I think it's the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I shot all 4 inches, and then I put some pictures up on Facebook. I wasn't on Insta at the time. And another artist in town, his name is Drake Friesen, and he's really, really good, and he has a particular style. So if you look and you see these images on Facebook or Instagram, and there's circles of light around the artist, right? That is probably Drake Friesen or someone like that. And Drake's is very distinctive. And I saw those photos and I thought, and I looked at my photos, we're taking a lot of the same kind of pictures. Like, I need to up my game here. And for the longest time, I'm like, I don't know how he does this. Are these overlays? They don't look like it. Then I found there's actually a lens that will do something similar called, it's a filter called Halo. And what it turns out he does, I'll share this. And sorry, Drake, if this is a secret, but I don't think it is. He puts a piece of copper tubing in front of the lens. And what happens is the light that's opposite of it will bounce off of the copper on the edge, and it reflects into the camera. And that's how he does it. It lost a little bit of the magic. There's still cool pictures, but I now know how to do it, and I now know, I could replicate that if I so chose. My artistic style is a little different, but it does take a little bit of the magic out. Yeah. I find
that's super creative.
Yeah,
though. I wonder if he did that on his own or if somebody taught him that.
Probably that's actually a fairly well-known technique. So
is that something they teach at art school?
That I don't know. But if you go on the internet and you start looking at special filters or ways to do weird shit in your photographs, you find they mention that.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. So it ruins it a little bit because some of the mystery is gone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you find things to appreciate. There are films. I watched the tragedy of Macbeth here recently. Just filmed here very recently. I think it was 2021. Denzel Washington plays Macbeth, and what is this on? Is it on Apple?
I think so, because I think tragedy of Macbeth, right? Yeah, I've been seeing previews for this.
It is stylistically gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
And it's got Denzel in it?
It's got Denzel. Yeah, colorblind casting. But yeah, it's
I didn't mean it that way. I just meant like I'm pretty interested if it's got Denzel in it.
It has
I think
Denzel
everybody's a Denzel fan. That's probably why they casted him in it.
Yeah,
they probably weren't even trying to be progressive. They were just like, well, Denzel sells. Let's just get him to do it.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily add anything to the body of work that it's, here's something new that we didn't know about Macbeth.
Now, is Macbeth the one where something legitimately tragic happens every time somebody ever tried to perform it or film it or something like that?
Yeah, it's actually kind of hard for me to say the name.
Or is that?
No, you're right.
Is it?
You typically, if you're in a theater, you don't say the name. And actually, most people that are in theater, they won't say the name ever. They call it the Scottish play. Because if you call it Macbeth, then bad things happen in the theater.
Like really bad shit.
Well,
and I'm saying, like, if I remember this,
people get
correctly,
killed on stage.
Yeah, like people
like
die.
The light rail falls or something like that.
Same thing when they tried to shoot the movie a few times, I believe.
Probably
like people died during filming. Like,
probably someone said Macbeth. So, but what you have to do to counteract it is, and this varies, you run around the theater 3 times, quoting lines from the play or something like that. But it's basically a curse from the witches.
Yeah, it's like an urban legend or whatever.
Yeah.
So they finally did it. TV show. It's on Apple now.
Yeah, and it's actually a movie, and it is stylistically gorgeous. High contrast, like black and white, filmed in the Academy ratio. So it's, instead of being like the
widescreen
anamorphic, it's a rectangle.
4:3?
Yeah. No, it's, I forget. Oh God, I forget. It's like 1.95 or 1.83 to 1, something like that. But it's called the Academy ratio. And if you're a fan of black and white, you gotta watch it. It is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Very stark, very stylized. Feels very German. But it's beautiful.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I'm watching it, and of course I know the story of Macbeth. I've seen it performed, yada yada yada. But I'm watching it, and I'm going, the cinematography. Oh my God. It was beautiful.
So is that where you find inspiration when you're not working? Do you like watch TV and watch movies and like get inspiration for shots or angles or things like that can be transferred into your skill set or whatever you say? Anything you see can be, just about any other art form. Anything you see can be inspiration. So when I see that and I go, I want to create some really high contrast shots. So watch out. Yours may end up being, really, really high contrast, which if you don't like, I can change. We'll figure it out, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a professional. That's why I fuck with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I trust you. So as long as I get a couple that fit pretty close to what my original mindset was, which I really don't even have this time. That's the point, is like last time I was I knew exactly what I wanted. I was like, I got these 4 or 5, 6 in my head. Yeah. Let's just try to get as close as we can. We did it. It was great. It was easy. Yeah. We were in and out of there in like an hour. Like I said, I like being easy to work with on that, because I also just leave most of it up to you guys. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Yeah. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
That's where I think we just did a photo shoot today, and I'm thinking that the ones where you were looking, your head was facing off, but you were looking at the camera, and I think those are going to be hot. I really feel that's going to be hot. And part of it, it's because I had just gone and done a photo shoot, and I had done some of that.
Gotcha.
So, and I have made other people do that. And when I saw the shots of me, my ugly mug on the screen and doing that, I'm like, those are pretty dope. So it's like, I want to try that here.
So what did you learn specifically from being the person being photographed today that's going to make you a better photographer going forward? Like, what is something you can physically or creatively take from your experience today and put that into your deal going forward?
I really need to get soft boxes. What that is, I will
explain to people what that is.
Sure. I'll either use, I have like the basic strobes, which are the big flashy lights that you.
I mean, technically, everyone put here. Let me switch this camera and then turn that on, because this is what you got right now for people to see. Why is this like this? Oh, I know what it is. Hold on. So that's super fucking.
Yeah.
So see how crazy bright that is, you guys, in the background there. For the listeners, I apologize, but it's insane. It like blows out the camera.
Yeah,
it looks like you're staring at the sun.
This is less than 50%.
Yeah, and it's crazy because even here it's pretty bright, but it's tolerable. But on camera, it's like, so it's an animal.
Yeah, it's a simple LED panel. They were actually dirt cheap. I paid $200 for a set of 3, including stands. Now it's a little wonky on the stand, but it works. So, but it produces a very hard-edged light. We call it a very spectral kind of light. So the shadows are going to be very harsh. Now that could be cool if that's the look you're going for.
Something dramatic,
right? But if you want something a little more friendly, then you use a diffuser. And that's if you go into a photo studio and you'll see these great big things that have, it looks like white gauze over the front of them, but they're these big black boxes. Those are called soft boxes. Yeah. And it produces a much not cooler, but a much more diffuse, less hard-edged light.
Yeah.
And so something similar to what I use with my strobes, but even softer.
In idiot terms, it like scatters and spreads the light across.
No, that's not in idiot terms. That's an exact term. That is exactly what it does. It provides a more even light source. Now, the trick is with them comes learning a little bit more about the management and manipulation of light. I can turn this on, and it's very forgiving. Sure. But it's less directable because it sprays light everywhere. Right. When you put soft boxes and diffusers and there's other things you can do to them on these lights, then you have to get much more savvy at how you manipulate the lighting.
Yeah. I think it's cool though, man, because I had to learn about this shit, and I always got annoyed with this shit. I was like, fucking whatever, who gives a fuck?
Well, you have diffusers on. Now yours is tissue paper.
I created mine. That one's a paper cloth. This one is a piece of semi-transparent plastic I tried to cut out and mount. I think it looks like shit. That one looks even worse. Yeah,
they can't see it.
That one, that's just tinfoil up there on that. On that
so basically you put it's called a barn door. Yeah, it's a barn door. So basically so it prevents it from shooting back. Mm-hmm. So, and it reflects some light down here. So that's, you're doing all the shit. You did it the redneck way.
I had to, man. Lights are expensive. They are. I got 4 mics. I got 3 cams. I got a camera or a underpowered computer rig. When it came to lights, which should never be your last thing. But when you're an idiot like I was, and you start this thing from the ground up, you do not understand the priorities. Yes, you need good cams, but even good cams and shitty light, you're gonna be fucking fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was not only finding light, but finding the type of light, finding the strength of light. There were so many variables in there. And then I found out that certain bulbs the LEDs, they flicker at a frequency,
Yes,
just
they
like
do.
a frame rate. And if you
Yep.
get the wrong ones or the cheap ones,
Uh-huh.
they'll flicker on camera.
Yep.
And then we're ruining podcasts.
That by the way, that also happens at shows.
Does
So
it really?
there was one
of
show.
course it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Lights
was
are
one,
lights.
Lights are lights.
Nowadays, lights are
Right.
lights. They use
There was one show, and this was Wildview, that I shot way back in the day, the first time I shot them. And there were these bands of light over some of the images. And I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yep.
And it turned out it was because the LEDs that they had were banding. Now, new cameras, thank you, Sony, new cameras have a way to fix that.
They have like an anti-flicker.
So they have an anti-flicker, so it fixes it in camera.
That's super cool because I was watching tutorials, learning this shit.
Yeah.
And this is this crazy thing. The reason I stumbled upon all of this knowledge was to try to figure out how to set up my podcast because there was no good information out there on how, and maybe that's what my TikTok information should be because there are no good channels out there for strictly showing you how to set up a podcast. They're all out there for two things: setting up a game streaming channel, and professionally filming things.
Right.
Period. And so I had to watch all of this redundant and useless information to me.
Got it.
Just to parse together the terminology so I understood what my problems were, so I could turn around and Google that very specifically, including lighting and
sounds like a TikTok
and the flicker and anti-flicker, all this shit, right?
Yeah.
I'm still afraid of doing the TikTok though because I still don't actually know what I'm doing. Right? but I started learning about like this dude. Before the camera had the anti-flicker technology, he had to change the frame rate that he was shooting at. He wanted to shoot at 60 frames because he was going to come bursting through the door and it was going to be slow-mo. Or maybe he was wanting to shoot at 120 or whatever it was.
Right.
And he was going to do this whole slow-mo thing and it was like really cool. And he couldn't because when he came around the corner, there was this weird, like, it looked like a ball being dropped in one of these lights. It was like a vertical light and it was just super awkward. And I didn't even notice it until he pointed it out. And then every time they showed that shot, that's all I could stare at was that fucking light.
Yeah.
And the only way he could fix it was changing the frame rate in his camera because you can't change the light.
Nope.
But that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And you see that too whenever you see somebody film a screen, like an old computer, and it'd be flashing. That's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you have to sync the frame rate. And there's actually some tech that they do to make that happen.
I don't even think they did. I think they just turn the computers off and CG'd a fucking new screen on there in order to bypass it.
Well, now computers are easier because you can adjust their frame rate. But the old televisions, there were ways to sync that to where if you cared to, it was expensive to do, I would imagine. But there were ways to sync it to where it didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
And now it's all fixed.
Yeah, the cheapest way to do it back in the day was just turn the computer off. Pretend you're working, and we'll just slap something up there in post.
Right.
And if you look, a lot of them now from back in the day, when you look at them, you can tell. It's like, oh, they totally just plastered that on there. Like, it doesn't even fit properly. But back then, you didn't know any better. It was just in passing in the moment. That's again what I kind of mean by like shit getting ruined because I went and had to go down this rabbit hole. And now I see shit all over the place, including other podcasts, like bigger podcasters than me, because I was basically lectured by YouTube on what not to do. Like, I even think about these camera angles that we do here and shit, right? And it's the best we can do with the setup and the tech we have. But then I see other bigger stars, real stars, I should say. I'm not a star at all. Actual stars with podcasts, and they put zero of that effort into it. They're poorly lit, or they're well lit, but the camera angles are trash, or they got shitty microphones. It's just, there's so many things, and it's like, I put so much effort into it to just not make my podcast suck.
Right.
That when people with the money and resources don't put that, just even any effort into it.
Yeah.
It's like, and I almost wish I didn't know any better. But then I start wondering, tell me if you think this. If you start thinking that way, then you just look at, oh, well, they're doing it. It's good enough for them. It's good enough for me. And then I'm hurting my own podcast by not caring enough because somebody bigger than me also doesn't care.
But I don't see you doing that. I wouldn't see me doing that. You know, I know some people that, you know, and not going to name any names, but they take pictures and it's a very retro kind of style to where there's no cropping, there's no processing, there's no nothing. It is the image as the camera sees it. It's kind of, camera verite. Let's call it that. I have no idea. And it's great if you have an image that is perfectly composed and perfectly lit. But I will tell you how often I take a shot like that. Not very often. It's rare that I have an image that is perfectly aligned and lit and everything is gorgeous, and I just look at it and go, yeah, done. Don't have to do a thing to it. Off it goes. Everything else, I have to fuck with it. I want to purify the image and try to restore it to what my mind's eye remembers it being, because how the camera processes information and how your eyes do, it's completely different. And so that concept of, I'm just going to take this and this will be cool, well, it's a style. But it's not a style that I ascribe to, because I want it to represent what I remember it being, not what the camera has seen.
Right on. Yeah, I swear through this research, somebody was telling me, or I was reading or listening to somebody talk about how crazy good the human eye is compared to cameras.
It is.
And we've never come close to creating, the difference is so dramatic, and cameras are so good now, people are having a hard time understanding this. It was really easy to tell back in the day when you looked at an old shitty photo, but people are having a hard time understanding these 4K beautiful perfect photos are still nowhere near. Is it your I think our eyes see at 10K or something like that, or 12K, some crazy fucking
think of it
resolution.
Yeah, think of it in a megapixel perspective. Okay, this I know. Sony, thank you. Get me another one, please. I'll take as much as you want to give me. Anyway,
and I'll take those advertising checks. You just keep sending them, guys.
Lenses too. I'm good with lenses. If they're Zeiss glass, I'm even better with them.
I'm also cool with cash.
Yeah, he's cool with cash. This is a pretty sophisticated camera. It is a brand new camera. It has a resolution of 31 megapixels. Okay, so that is a good image.
And what is that? So what does that mean?
That's 31 million bits of information
per
image.
Oh,
per image that it captures. It captures it on a sensor that looks like a 35 millimeter slide. So it's probably, I think it's 2 by 2 point something. I don't remember the exact measurements.
So it's 31 million
pieces of data to create the image. 31 million spots, basically. The human eye, by comparison, has a resolving power of 600 million spots.
That's insane.
So it's 20 times more powerful than this camera. It is 6 times more powerful than the most powerful camera that's currently available for purchase. Is actually a 100 megapixel camera.
That's insane. Yeah. And that sounds right too.
But eyes work differently. And that's the thing that people need to remember, is that if I'm looking at you, I am mainly perceiving you, and then everything else is kind of a hazy, fuzzy thing. It's sort of like we're all looking through life through, I know, pets fall. Love you people. Through a pets fall lens, because the center of it's going to be really sharp. Now, I can tell, that there's a monitor kind of over there. There's a light there, but I'm not paying attention to it all because I'm focusing right here on your face. A camera sees everything indiscriminately. Now, it may be blurrier depending on the depth of field, which is how deep the lens can focus. But I can take a picture where everything is in focus. Everything is in focus. And that's very different from how the eye works. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the eye is a very selective camera.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as you're sitting there saying that, it's as I'm staring at you perfectly in focus, everything around you is in varying degrees of focus, and the farther I get away from you, the more blurry and hazy it gets.
Right.
Quite literally, to where way over here it's colors like that Metallica poster. I can see the Metallica poster, but I can't see anything on it, and I can just see the black and white.
Yep.
That's all I can see.
Now, the advantage that our eyes have is that I can look from you directly to the screen, and my eye shifts like that within a split
as far
second.
as the focus goes.
Right. The camera takes a little longer, but that's the real difference. And that's where, when I'm trying to recreate what I remember, I'm trying to create what I was focusing on at the time. Like if I'm taking a picture, it can be anybody. It doesn't really necessarily matter. Of Joe, we mentioned him from Revenant Soul. And the thing that I'm noticing is how fast his fingers are flying over the fretboard. Now, I can't show the motion, but I can give the impression of it. And I can make sure that the viewer's eye is drawn to the part of the image that I remember.
So what do you do in that spot? Do you like focus on his fingers so they're in focus and then slow down the frame rate so you get a little bit of motion blur?
No, usually there's motion blur because they're just moving too fast for my camera to catch it at the frame rate, or at the
so you don't have
speed.
to slow shit down.
Yeah, I can
just
stop
put that
it
in focus and let everything else get a little blurry.
Right.
Instead of maybe his face is perfectly
exactly
in focus. Gotcha.
Yeah. Or if I'm trying, and it could be that then I want to capture the look of him being lost in the moment, but still give the impression of what he's doing. So then you focus on his eye, because that's really what you want in the best focus if you're doing a face shot, and then everything else will kind of fall where it does. And I can adjust it to where if I want everything in focus and I have enough light, I can do that.
It's fucking mind-blowing, dude.
Yeah.
And this is why I love talking to guys who aren't doing music. And I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but I've been booking more and more guests that aren't musicians because I'm fascinated by the specificity.
Felicity.
Specificity.
Supercalifragilistic.
I am though. Like, I'm fascinated by the specificity
yeah.
of other crafts, because there is as much detail and nuance, and it's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
The amount of individual little deals, that make up the craft, the skill, the art, whatever it is that we're doing, including like a cigar, man. Like I always knew it was complicated and confusing, but I really wanted to learn this time.
Right.
When I was 25, I would ask questions, but it was so confusing. I was like, what? Okay, whatever, dude. I like the dark ones. Give me the dark ones, the slightly thinner, darker ones. I knew not to go with the big fatties. That's all I could really know. And I knew I didn't like something any lighter than this, and I'm usually not on board. Like the ones I showed you in my humidor, those Connecticut leaves. Well, this time I was like, I want to know.
Right.
Dude, it is... I think I understand it all now.
And see that...
But then to turn around and regurgitate that or apply it or whatever, it's like, no, this is a deal. Cigars, photography, music, making beer, making great beer. Because I had Jeremy Matheson from
you
Broken
can make
Clock
shitty
on.
beer. It's not that hard, apparently.
I'm telling you, man, like
hams.
Each one of these things takes... But even hams. This is what he was telling me. Even the cheap, shitty beers, the consistency... He goes, that is the art. He goes, I'm telling you right now, Jared, he sat right in that chair and he was like, I'm telling you right now, dude, the fucking best brewers in the world work for those big Budweiser, Coors, crazy big breweries, because they're the ones who can make it to where I don't think most people know this, but Coors, Budweiser, all those cheap beers, none of them are just brewed in one spot, because you couldn't possibly ship that beer fast enough.
Right.
To get it to everybody and keep it fresh.
Right.
So they brew it all over the country with different water supplies, different ratios, different types of grains that they can get in that area, right? Even the big guys. But they're able to make the tiny minor adjustments to where you can't tell if that's a Coors brewed in actual Colorado or if that's one brewed in Kentucky. You have no fucking idea.
Flint, Michigan, maybe you could.
That is right, maybe.
If it kills you, it's made in Flint.
But that's what he was telling me. He's like, those are the guys that are really the best in the
Impressive.
world. But all I'm getting at is whether it's cigars, whether it's photography, whether it's whatever, including, and fucking, I'm starting to learn this too. Even podcasting, 125 episodes in. Yeah. These are things that cannot be taught. I mean, you can teach people, but they can't really be taught. And the learning of them takes years, 10, 15, 20 years to true. And you hear comics talk about this too. Like the Rogans and the Kreischers and Bill Burr, they say, don't even call yourself a comic unless you've been doing it for 7 years.
Right.
That's fucking crazy. Like, and that's not gatekeeping either. That's just being honest. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're a dude who does comedy. And I think there's some truth to that in all of our fields, isn't there? Like, even with music.
No, I would agree.
I ask guys all the time. I'm like, they're like, oh, I play guitar. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, let me ask you, dude. Do you play guitar or are you a guitar player? And most guys, even if they're not legit, they go, oh, I just play guitar.
Yeah.
Like they even get it. Because there's a huge difference between being a guitar player. I barely even consider myself a guitar player anymore, dude. That's how my scale of skill has gone up as well. As I have more conversations and get to know more musicians and coming off tour, I'm like, fuck, man. Even I was never that high on my own skills. Like, I think I'm a dope songwriter. I'm not even shy about that. But you'll never hear me be like, yeah, I'm a dope ass guitar player.
Yeah.
Like, you will hear me say I'm a dope drummer, but you'll also hear me say in the exact same sentence, I'm not actually very good, but I'm fucking dope. And there's a big difference between those two things. But yeah,
I can see that.
It takes time, man.
Yeah.
It takes so much time. And I don't know. I'm ranting about it, but I'm genuinely fascinated by the absolute crazy amount of detail that goes into every craft.
And the important thing,
not just music.
Yeah, and you touched on it. The important thing to note, it's not like I go to a concert and go, okay, I am going to look for the vein popping out of the lead singer's throat when they're growling their hardest. I am going to look for this. I'm going to look for that. I'm doing this because I'm going to put it in the rule of thirds, and I'm going to put it in the upper left-hand corner. Rule of thirds is a very common photography term about where you put pictures.
Yeah, you're basically framed in the.
Yeah, I'm in the rule of thirds. I am in the upper left-hand corner right now, which is a pleasing place for me to be in the eye.
Especially because you're talking to me over here.
Right, you're in the upper right.
Yep, and if I framed this like the other way, so on mine when I'm talking, if it was like this over on this side, I'm doing this in real time, so the viewers, so yours would be over there, mine would be stuck way over here. It starts to feel real claustrophobic.
Right.
So,
right, you put space in there to allow for the look, essentially.
Yep. Because they know I'm over here, and vice versa. And let me put this one back.
Yeah. So I don't go in with all of these concepts floating around in my head. Some people have to learn it. Some people come by it naturally. I certainly think that innate talent plays a little bit of a role in it. And that, I had an innate talent. And when I was 5, which is when I picked up my first camera, which I actually just bought a copy of that camera. It's on my shelf at home.
Nice.
So I had that kind of concept. And then as you go along, you learn stuff, you incorporate it, and then you understand the why of what you're doing, as opposed to, oh, I'm some people learn that way. I have to do this by the rule of thirds, and this is what I look at. I'm arranging pictures, and I'm thinking, okay, sometimes it's, how can I get this to fit? Oh, rule of thirds-ish, and because rules are made to be broken, and when you can break them and when you don't. And so it's more, I can explain that to somebody, but I don't sit there and think about it overtly when I'm in the middle of a concert with people kicking me in the eye.
Right.
Yeah. At that point, I go, ow, who kicked me in the fucking eye?
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though, dude. It's super interesting to me, at least. Just to realize, like, yeah, do try to do like one thing, maybe two, and excel at that instead of trying to do what I did, which is like be a jack of all trades. Because you just start watering down, and you just basically half-ass everything, and it's almost impossible to do anything at a high level that way.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah,
that's the saying.
But a jack of all trades is better than a master of none.
Well, if you are a jack of all trades, you're a master of none.
Right.
Because you've diluted yourself down.
But there's a full phrase there. We cut it off.
I don't know anything more than that. You
actually no. Now that I think of it, I think it's a jack of all trades, master of none. But a jack of all trades is better than a master of one. I think that's actually what the full phrase is.
That's interesting. I've never heard the rest of that.
Here, I'm going to see if I can look it up real quick.
That sounds like a Googleable question.
Here, I'll just look it up on my phone.
Who do we have online?
I don't know. There's a few people bouncing in and out.
Hey, people bouncing in and out.
They haven't been commenting too much, which means our conversation's either going really well or really poorly.
Really, it's like, are you? If you're bored shitless, let us know. Or it's like you're just so caught up. It's like you forget to type on your keyboard.
Jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Interesting.
That's the full phrase.
I have never heard that. See, you learn all sorts of shit on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, well, technically you're right, because we are on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys learned something today on YouTube.
It's like a positive feedback loop. I'm going to learn stuff and then
and
learn
that's what
from
it is,
that.
but oftentimes better than a master of one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I might be more useful more often, but when it comes to doing shit at a high level and being like really successful, just concentrate on one or two things.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm convinced of. Yeah, I wasted a lot of time trying to do too many things.
Right.
Like literally too many instruments. I was a guitar player, a singer, and a drummer. And there's certain guys that are naturally talented at every instrument. And I guess you could put me in that category because I really didn't work that hard at any of the instruments to get good in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like I also worked really fucking hard to get as good as I am. So I don't really, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I feel like I've wasted a lot of time and energy by trying to do too many things. And I'm excited for the chapters going forward because this community we're building here, I don't want to see bands do that same thing either, right? And this is what I'm getting at is like, bands are worried about spending money, so they get their girlfriend to just shoot photos, right? No, let's hire a photographer, right? You don't want to go fucking have a bunch of random people shooting with their iPhones and, well, I got a really nice camera because your buddy's an amateur photographer, so let's shoot a music video. And then you hodgepodge and edit together because you don't know anything about LUTs and you don't know all this other shit. No, like, let's hire a fucking video guy, right? Same thing. It's like, even with my silly little podcast, dude, it's like I need to get a producer eventually. I need more Patreon subscribers. I need more YouTube subs. Eventually I need Twitch subs, but we'll get there.
Right.
And then I can just concentrate on being a better host and a better interviewer and things like that. Because that's honestly, man, that's what I realized when I was a guest on somebody else's podcast is like, sometimes you guys come here and you sit here and I have to ignore you for like half hour as I'm finishing setting things up for the podcast and making sure everything's working. And that's fucking awkward. And I never realized that or thought about that until I went and was somebody's guest on somebody else's podcast. And it wasn't that I felt awkward or uncomfortable because he was really gracious about it. But I was just sitting there kind of like, okay, there's like 5-10 minutes before we actually start. I actually know he's probably working and like making sure shit's dope. So I'm not going to fuck with him and bother him. And then I was like, God, this must be what my guests feel like. And I was like, okay, how can I alleviate that? You know, it's like have as much set up way before they ever show up as possible. And it's still not possible. Like you guys still get here. We still got checks to do. Still got all those things to do, but it made me a better host. It made me a better podcaster, realizing there's certain things that other people are feeling that I never even perceived because I'd never been on that side of the table before.
Right.
Which isn't true. I had, but they were in different scenarios where it wasn't remotely comparable to mine is what I'm getting.
Right.
When I learned something, and I do think it made me better. That's why I wanted to ask you about that, too. Yeah, it's weird, dude. It's weird trying to do a lot of shit, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I know you got some cool shit coming up. I got some cool shit coming up. I'm not talking about it anymore. I learned that lesson. I'm going to keep it close to the vest, but there's some cool shit coming down the pipeline, and I think the next couple of years are going to be really cool for our town. I really do, and I'm glad and happy because I'm pretty sure this podcast is responsible for some of it. Is bringing a lot of people together and making new connections, and the scene is definitely a little bit more unified and together now than it was when I started 2 years ago. I mean, there's guys that didn't even know some of these bands existed until they came on the podcast. So it's good. It seems like it's working, and maybe even this year I get my press pass for Rockfest.
Hit up John.
I asked for it too late last year. That was the big problem.
Yeah.
So this year I got to get in a little earlier. I might actually be able to get one. That'd be dope. I feel like that'll be the most validating thing I've done on the podcast. I'm like, I'm officially pressed now. When I get that press pass, does that like put me in some weird like category where I can start like claiming to be press in other scenarios? Like, can I start applying for press passes at like Vikings events and shit? Because I am a podcaster. I am technically.
You certainly can. Now, will they grant it? That just depends on the venue.
Because you've gotten press passes before.
Actually, no. No, because I'm usually there hired by the band.
But you got a Rockfest press pass last year.
Not a press pass.
Oh, you didn't?
I got a pass because I was there shooting a number of places. Through the courtesy, thank you very much, John Wiederman. Think I got it right?
Oh, yeah. No, we joke about this. I don't think anybody knows.
Okay.
Because I think it's Wiedemann.
Okay.
I don't think anybody knows.
John from Rockfest.
I call him just John V. Rocker.
John V. Rocker. There you go. So, yeah, I went there. And by the way, this was the first year I was shooting at Rockfest, was last year. And I went up and I saw the regular parking and I saw the lines like, out to God's country, basically, which is that's where it's located. And I went to the employees entrance and I happened to run into John. And, I asked him, I said, hey, I'm here shooting bands. Can you give me some direction where to go? I've not been here before. And John was nice and let me park in the employee parking, gave me a pass. So he gave me that kind of pass. No, but it wasn't a press pass.
Still sick, though.
Yeah, and I was very grateful. It made things much easier. And it would be lovely to have one of those again this year, John, because I'm shooting even more bands this year.
Yeah, just get the guy a fucking all-access pass. That way you can run around and shoot whatever you want.
Yeah, that starts to get a little tricky.
I definitely need and deserve an all-access pass. Because most of what I really do is behind the scenes, backstage, networking and meeting and hanging out with people.
Right.
That's really where I need to be, is backstage. So I'm going to need an all-access, not just a press pass.
Yeah, well, there you go. John, go ahead. You work on that. So because even...
That's me kissing your ass.
Even because basically it was just I was able to get into the event. And then it was easy because I had an employee pass to go just park. Right. And I would park with all the employees. Now, that still didn't grant me... If I wasn't shooting somebody that was going to be on stage like imminently, and depended on the stage. But if I wasn't shooting someone that was going to be there imminently, I wasn't supposed to be there. And I get it because it's crowd control. If you had every band that was going to be playing that day and their girlfriends and their entourage and their boyfriends and everything else, you wouldn't be able to move.
Right.
And so security was doing their job and making sure that, okay, you're not shooting a band that's on until 5 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. You kind of need to clear out of here. Yeah. And they were very nice about it. And it's like, that makes perfect sense. Then when I came back later, there was one time that I just had to say, my equipment's here, can I get it? Because I had left my equipment in one of the other stages. The main stage security is a little bit more stringent, as you might imagine, because that's where all the big acts are.
Yeah, like I said, I need an all access.
People don't want to fuck with those.
I need an all access because that's where I need to be. I need to be with those big bands because I need to start getting bigger acts on this show to build the audience to a wider range. Mm-hmm. So that way when we have, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, what a dick. He doesn't care about the local bands. He's trying to go get with the big bands. Yes, you're fucking right. And here's why. It's very simple. I get bigger people on the podcast, bigger guests. Mm-hmm. That grows the audience. That gives us a wider platform. So when the smaller guests come on, they have more people to broadcast and plug their shit to. It's not greed. It's not me being a dick. It's the exact opposite. You know what I mean?
And you're still able to keep a variety. It's not as if you're going to be, this week is going to be August Burns Red, and next week is going to be Hailstorm, and the following week is going to be, whichever.
I'll go back to Uncle Daddy. Yeah.
Or go back to Uncle Daddy. Yeah. Right.
And then that's I hope you guys have seen that too, because as we've had on more people who aren't musicians, I'm still having musicians on. It's just February was really the first month where I was able to get, I think, a really healthy amount of people who weren't musicians on all at once. Going back to really the middle of January. I had Jeremy on. I had Marco V on. Then I had Steve back on. I'm having you back on.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I don't know. I kind of made a decision because there's some fan cam stuff that I have. And I've labeled it on my site. If it's something that I wasn't there with a photo pass, if it's a really big band, with the exception of like Seven Dust and August Burns Red, and there's like a smattering of others that I had photo passes for the pit. But by and large, my focus is on the local community. Now, if Lizzie Hale is watching this, and I know you're performing at Rockfest, and if you want me to shoot your performance, I would adore it. I would love it. You don't even have to pay me. I would do it just because I think it's a whole lot of fun.
I put in a timestamp and a stream marker. I'm going to see if I can come back, grab that clip. We'll clip it up. We'll throw it on TikTok and Instagram, and we'll tag her.
Yes, Lizzie, I would be perfectly happy to. I adore your band. I adore you, and I would love to shoot your band at Rockfest. And
see if we can make it happen.
Yeah, and if people, if larger bands were to come
shout out to Lizzie Hale.
Shout out to Lizzie Hale. You are wonderful. I love you. And if larger bands came and it's like, we saw your work, we'd really like to hire you, I'm not going to tell them, no, I'm just part of the local scene.
Right.
But my focus is really on local bands and helping them out, supporting them, catching their badassery and displaying it for everybody else, and also maybe in some cases displaying it for them.
Whereas me, I have zero loyalty to you fucks. Zero fucking loyalty to you, this
Truth
town
comes
or
out.
this scene.
Dun dun dun.
No, I'm just joking. But it's not a local music podcast. This isn't a music podcast even technically. My foundation, like Rogan was in comedy from the LA scene. So most of his guests for a long time were LA comic. Right? That's simple. Most of mine are Minneapolis musicians and other business owners and people I admire or respect or find interesting or whatever. But yeah, as we continue to grow this thing, and I already have a ton of people across the country willing to do it, but I don't have the budget to fly them in. So we're still trying to figure out how I'm going to get to them. So we already figured out how we're going to go do the people in Dallas and in Texas. I got a Florida trip I got to figure out, and then I got an LA trip I got to figure out. I was going to try to hit LA with Stormbreaker when they went, but their original show got canceled because of COVID.
Right.
And then when they rescheduled, it ended up being right before Christmas. First of all, there was no way I could make it, and I don't think they even invited me on the reschedule because I think shit changed for them as well.
Well, I told them not to.
You fuck. You went out there with them.
I was out there with them. I shot at the whiskey.
You're like, listen, I love Jared, but I don't think I could travel across the country with him. I'm actually a great road trip companion. I'll tell you why. Because I don't fucking talk. Believe it or not. Like, I don't know what it is, but in cars, I don't do a lot of talking. I just don't. There's something, it's like meditative almost for me.
Huh.
I love to listen to music and just zone out, whether I'm driving or not. And if you guys are listening to other music that I'm not into, I just put on headphones and jam out on my own. It's like one of my most secluded creative places is the road, driving or being in a car while it's moving, whatever. I don't know what it is, man. Yeah, and so I'll fucking hang out with people and shit, but I don't really annoy people. And like I said, I also have really good personal hygiene, so I'm not stinking up the bus. Right. People like sitting next to me. They're like, Jared smells good. Hey, bro, can I borrow some cologne?
Put my head in your lap.
All of a sudden, the whole van smells like Jimmy Choo because everybody's borrowing the cologne. Probably the biggest not the biggest compliment, but the most consistent compliment I've ever gotten when I get off stage. People are like, oh my God, you actually smell good. Because a lot of musicians don't, especially when they get off stage.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's bad.
Now it's time to drive back.
I think that Stormbreaker bus is big enough, though. I don't think it'd be too big of a problem. Not like you're crammed in a tiny little SUV.
Right. Well, and we flew out to L.A.
Did you guys?
Yeah.
How'd you get the gear out there? Bring it with?
That I don't remember, but I know the members flew.
Fuck. When you're going to LA, though, you probably just rent the gear out there.
No, they probably backlined something, but I think they had it. I think they had it shipped.
Interesting. So they didn't drive the bus out.
No.
That'd be a great road trip.
Yeah. And I flew out and I stayed at one of my favorite hotels. And
where's that?
The Montrose Hotel and Residences in West Hollywood. It is literally 3 blocks from the whiskey.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How expendy was that?
That's like $250, $300 a night.
Jesus Christ. And that's not even that expensive for LA.
It's West Hollywood.
Ridiculous.
They're basically, it was an apartment complex that was converted. And so you get a little kitchenette and they're You get fireplaces. When you pick up the phone, it's like, yes, Mr. Ingram-Lile, how can I help you? So without, your room 310, or actually 326, because that's my room whenever I go. Yes, I have a room at the hotel whenever I go. It's the one they always seem to put me in, so I don't know. It's not like I request it. Brother. Yeah, but they recognize you by name. They're very chill. They take care of the expensive cars that I rent, one of my luxuries. So yeah,
that's. You did a bunch of other photography while you were out there too.
I did.
You did a bunch of walking around doing shit. So did you notice the homeless problem as much as they describe it?
It's hard to miss the homeless problem, especially if you're in downtown LA. I didn't spend as much time there this time around, but it's pretty bad. I mean, you see shit on the sidewalk in downtown LA, and you're not sure if it's a really big dog or a human, and it's probably about 50-50.
Probably a human, let's be honest. Even dogs have more dignity than that.
Well, and that's the challenge. Yeah, there's this enormous tent city that's down there. And yeah, it kind of is what it is. And downtown LA, I mean, even Skid Row has really developed. So it's getting gentrified just like everything else.
Did you go down to Skid Row?
Not this time.
I just seen a TikTok of a dude on Skid Row with a 2-story homeless shelter.
Mm-hmm.
No bullshit. It took him months, like 6 months.
Yeah.
He gathered up 2x4s. He gathered up boxes for cardboard for his walls,
right?
Instead of sheetrock, and he put this whole thing on fucking furniture movers. So like basically 4 furniture dollies, and built a frame on the bottom, built the 4 walls, then built a second story, built a ladder to get up there. It's completely framed with cardboard. He's built in a couple windows. Then some girl showed up, and she put like basically tinfoil all over. It's not tinfoil, but it's basically tinfoil to help reflect the sun out to keep it even cooler in there.
Yeah.
And he's a fucking homeless dude living on a sidewalk in a 2-story house now that he built. And he put it on wheels, so if anybody ever tries to come kick him out, he can just wheel that motherfucker wherever he's got to go. I'm like, dude, we got to fix this shit, dude. This is getting too big. This is insane. Because soon he's going to be wiring up electricity in there. I'm serious. Like, he's going to be like, I'll get some solar panels. Fucking, there's a reason we have building codes. You know what I mean? Like this is not cool. This has gone too far.
Well,
but it's so bad. What do you do? How do you kick these people out of nowhere?
Well, and that's the trick. And it's, we'll get political here for a second, and I have definitive views on this. Well, definitive may be another thing. But let's provide housing. It's like, fine, housing them rather than trying to build a social safety net around them. Housing is much cheaper.
I mean, they've tried to do this, but it doesn't ever seem to work because there's 2 big problems: is where do you put them?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you put this whole homeless housing community? Do you randomly one-off them everywhere, or do you put them all in one area? And then 2, what are the regulations you have to keep that place in place? Like, what are the rules, and who enforces those rules? And like, because I know they've got one where they basically built up to code tiny studio sheds, and they even have fucking AC, and they're only half full because the crime there is so fucking bad because the police aren't going in there because it's crazy. Right. And then the rest of the homeless people just don't want to live there because they're like, this is basically a prison complex. I'm not moving in there.
Yeah.
And so it's fucking it's like even giving them a fucking free place. Some of them, that's not what they want.
Well,
like there are genuine people that just want to live that life.
All right, and that's great, but it's only some of them. And then you have the others that, most people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck.
True.
It would not take long for almost anybody listening to this podcast, all 4 of you. It wouldn't take long for most people that if you lost your job or you encountered some serious financial setback, that you could be out on the streets.
Well, and that's what happened here.
And there's a lot of people like that here.
That's what happened here.
Then what did they do? They had them all along 55 East. There was that big tent city. They cleared them all out of there. So where are they now? They're over near the Caboose.
And the Quarry.
Yeah.
There's a big homeless camp right right in the Corey Port.
So it's like,
basically.
okay, so you knock down all their houses and then it's like, so they just go someplace else. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're accomplishing.
It's crazy though, because those people at the fucking quarry, like, women are getting mugged, cars are getting stolen, people are getting robbed, the stores are getting ripped off.
Mhm.
They have to change their hours now because, and it's just like, fuck, dude, what do we do? But it's interesting because I think you nailed it on the head. What happened here was the pandemic happened,
Right.
and just people just never had a lot of money in savings. But in California, that only accelerated a problem they'd already been dealing with. And I don't know if you know this story, but basically what happened was, in the 70s, when Reagan was governor of California, he shut down all the state-run mental institutions.
Yes.
Now, there's some ethical reasons that was a great idea, right? Because people were being tortured, and there's some really inhumane shit happening in those mental hospitals. But he really did it not to be humane. He did it to cut costs.
Right.
He did it because he was a Republican, and it was costing money, and he wanted to, lower taxes and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That there was no plan as to what to do with those people, and they were immediately homeless, every single one of them. And here's the thing: they all fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Homeless people have sex too, and homeless people have children. And so there was more babies that were now homeless on the streets with their homeless mothers, with their homeless fathers, and a lot of these mental disabilities were hereditary.
Right.
So the homeless population is mostly mentally ill people.
There's a lot of it.
And then a lot of drug addicts.
There's a lot of that.
It's mostly that. And then there's a bunch of vets too.
Mm-hmm.
But to reiterate your point, is the actual people that want to be homeless, not very many of them.
No, there's not. No. And it's interesting. He was about 10 years too late, because there was, and I want to say it happened under, it was Kennedy's idea that people should be out of the institutions and they should be integrated in society. So let's close the institutions and let's build this comprehensive social safety net for these people. Well, part one happened. Part two did not.
Sure.
And that has a lot to do with the homeless problem we're seeing now. Is consequences from 50 some odd years ago, where we didn't create that, because social programs are ripe to cut if there's any kind of deficit, or depending on the person that gets in office. I won't get into all of that, but I think we know what the answer is that social programs they're popular to cut. It's like, well, why should we spend all this money on these people that are now homeless? Despite the fact it's because we made them that way.
What's crazy about that, though, is the flip side of that coin, right? Like, the only way you fund all these fucking social safety nets is by raising taxes.
Yep.
But then you raise taxes to the point where people can't afford to save money like they used to. So then if the pandemic happens, now those people are also homeless.
Mm.
Like, you can't just fund everything, because that money has to come from taxpayer dollars. And the rich are never going to fund most of the bill. It's just never going to happen. So when we have these idealistic ideas and dreams, cool, but most of it comes out of people like my paycheck. Property taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, and shit. It's already expensive as fuck to live in Minneapolis. Me and my wife had to come to the hood just to be able to buy a home with what we were looking for in a reasonable price range. I mean, my home was literally 4 times as expensive if I was 4 miles east, still in Northeast, and we would have gotten less house.
Right.
Less house for 4 times more the money. See what I'm saying? So we moved over here because this is what was affordable. Well, our property taxes to fund all these beautiful programs, which have not improved a single fucking thing since we've been here. In fact, everything seems to have gotten measurably worse here. Our property taxes have doubled, dude. And now our property taxes are an issue in our bills. It's like, fuck, man. Like, at what point is it too much? And I'm not going full on fucking libertarian about this, because it's also, you see the same thing from the
I will have to set you on fire if we go libertarian.
No,
just to let you know.
I'm not a libertarian.
Good. Where's the lighter?
I do respect the libertarians. Here you go. Light me up. I do respect the libertarians because they're consistent, and I always know where they're going to fall on an issue. So I can respect that because they're consistent, right? But I also see a problem from the corporations on the capitalistic side of things too, because like even Amazon, after setting record profits last year, they're raising the price again. So now it's going to be $140. So I got to start asking myself, at what point is Amazon too expensive? At what point can I not afford this?
Right.
Because it does, each one of these things will in fact reach a threshold. And taxes is one of the biggest problems. I mean, fuck, man, I don't even make that much money. But when I do, the government still takes a third of my check. And then if I make more, they want to take more. Well, you made more. You can afford to give more. It's like, that's not fucking actually true. Because again, I'm not actually saving enough money to where if the pandemic happens, how do I know I'm not homeless?
Yeah.
Just because it seems like I make enough now is irrelevant.
With that sweater, you do look it.
Either that or I look like a junkie.
Junkie homeless. There you go.
Rich junkie.
Yeah, there you go. And the tough thing is that, as you know, we're describing single issues in a broken system.
Exactly.
This
but
is
they do loosely tie
multifactorial.
together. They do loosely tie together.
Oh, they all tie together
in like this weird cycle.
And that's the problem. It will take some large-scale changes to make things better, and no one's willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it will,
because they're going to piss off way too many people. They're going to piss off the people that are donating money to their campaigns. They're going to piss off the rich people. God help you if you piss off the rich people. It's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, because we do need rich people. Because if we alienate the rich people and overtax the rich people, we've already seen what they do. They just leave. They bring their shit to China. They bring their shit to fucking Mexico. That's not better for us either. No. You know what I mean? Like dude, it's a fucked game. But I think hopefully the rich people and those corporations are also seeing that when they depend on foreign labor, when a pandemic happens, they lose billions of dollars as well. So hopefully we can see this thing kind of balance out, because you're seeing the rhetoric change that they do want to start creating more American jobs so we're not dependent on supply chains. Like the microchip example. You know about the microchip problem?
Yeah. Yep.
They're all made in fucking China by basically one guy. Like basically one guy is the only one who knows how to make these microchips.
What happens if he gets COVID?
Right.
Well, what happens if he gets COVID is you don't get your BMWs, you don't get your Teslas, as the waiting list is now.
Or you don't get your iPhones, or you don't even get your entry level Kia, because they all use computer chips.
You don't get your Sony cameras. You don't get podcast upgrade equipment. There's basically everything. Is affected.
It's fucking wild, dude. And same thing, we had a hard time in Minneapolis getting garbage cans because the plastic that they're made from is in China.
Yeah.
Like the trash cans we use in Minneapolis, Minnesota was fucked up because of the supply chain thing that happened with China.
Yeah.
And so there was a long period of time where people would buy a house or move in somewhere and they couldn't get a trash can from the city.
Right.
Like, how do you deal with that? You just put it out there on the ground?
That's what we
City
used to
doesn't take it. The city will not take your garbage unless it's in a can.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, dude. So at least
bonfires.
We are starting to see some rhetoric, though, change, where guys are like, okay, I think we do need to go back to being more employing American citizens, and that's good because that provides more jobs, which immediately counteracts homelessness. And if those jobs are American, that means they're going to be getting paid better than a foreign worker, right? Which, yes, will bring up the costs of certain goods, but when that brings up the competitive pay within an industry, so now that I know I can go make $20 an hour over here, you got to pay me more than 12, or I'll just go switch over here. So fine, we'll pay you 15, 16. Well, now we have more people actually making a decent living, so they can afford to buy more, so they can actually go buy more of your products, so you can continue to make more money. That's how the fucking the capitalistic system's supposed to work.
Yeah.
But when we just shipped it all overseas and there's nobody here who has a job, there is no money for us to buy any of your shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, it really kind of is that simple. It's not, but it really kind of is if you think about it. And it's like, we got to create more American jobs. So that's the first wave of helping out the homeless problem. We need to create more jobs, because there are a lot of those homeless people willing to work right now, but there are no jobs. And then once we have enough people with enough money, maybe we can actually figure out how to fucking fund some of these issues.
I'm just waiting for the Vulcans to come.
Right?
You know?
I think it's going to be the Chinese.
Okay, whichever. But no, it needs to be someone that unites the planet. I really think they need to be off.
I would prefer it be off.
Yeah. I'm a big Trekkie, so yeah.
But I think that
we need the post. What is it? The post scarcity economy that you have in Star Trek. We need replicators where it's
you're more Star Trek than you are Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
Do you know the big difference between the two?
Star Trek theoretically is more scientifically based, which it's not, but it seems to be. And Star Wars is much more about the story. That's the difference.
That's also true. That's also true. I was going to say Star Trek is a utopia. Star Wars is a dystopia.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If we can get to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
scarcity.
Star Wars is much more about it's a space opera without the music.
Sure. Yeah, it's just human problems from Earth in outer space.
Yeah.
There's drug running.
Right.
There's corruption.
Right.
There's racism. I can't remember which version of the Empire, but one of those versions in the 9 movies is a direct analogy to white supremacy and the Nazis. Like, very deliberate. I think it's the one in the most recent.
That sounds right.
I mean, they all got some fucking Nazi vibes to them, but that one's specific because they're talking about like ethnic cleansing in that movie. And
right.
Shit.
Although the uniforms, just like the Nazis, snappy dressers. You can't deny that. There were a lot of things, but they were pretty snazzy.
It is pretty interesting that America kind of got rid of all of that pomp and circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Like our military is just like pretty boring looking because it's all about the camo, right? Our politicians just wear suits like regular douchebags.
Mm-hmm.
But every other country in world history up until that point, their royalty, their generals, they were decked out, man. Yeah. They looked like assholes.
With the big poofy hats and the whole bit.
Man, I'm glad we got rid of that one when we started the American government system. Because you had what? You had like Washington, Jefferson, Madison. Yeah, and by the fourth or fifth
and those
president,
other dudes.
By the fourth or fifth president, though, those wigs were gone.
Yeah.
It was like the first 3 or 4, I think. Washington. Jefferson.
Don't get me to lying.
Yeah, Washington, Jefferson, Adams.
Hamilton? Where was Hamilton?
Madison. Hamilton, I don't think was ever actually president.
And we should know this because...
Yes, he was. Hamilton was president. Yes, he was.
Yeah, we should know this because one of the reasons...
It's Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Pearson, Van Buren.
If you go to parts of Minneapolis... I
used to know all my presidents in order.
Well, there's the one part of Minneapolis, and part of it was to help people migrating here to pass their citizenship exams, where the streets are listed in order of presidents.
Yep.
And so I should know this, but...
I didn't know it was to help people pass their citizenship exam. But that does make sense, because Northeast is so fucking Polish in its history.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many Polish people.
Polish and Irish.
So many Polish people in Northeast traditionally. I mean, it's probably not true anymore. It's extremely diverse now. Probably one of the most diverse cities in the country, for being honest. Like, it's especially if you break down Northeast into percentages. I mean, I think it's almost equal. There's a bunch of Hmongs, there's a bunch of Latinos, there's a bunch of Somalians, because we're a refugee city.
Yeah.
And the ones that got their shit together and got money all moved to Northeast.
Pretty much, yeah.
For real.
Pretty much.
For real.
So, but they didn't all, they weren't always that way. You look at a lot of the homes.
For a long time, it was all Polish people, like back in the 60s and 70s.
And they were, they were reasonable houses. They weren't anything spectacular. They didn't live on the Parkway. Right. But they were, they were reasonable houses for working class people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of the homes up in this area.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing is North Minneapolis actually has nicer homes than Northeast Minneapolis.
In some parts, most certainly.
Like the actual homes that were built back in the day, like my house, the natural woodwork, like you're not finding this in Northeast anymore. It's just the few houses that was in have been torn down or renovated. A lot of them weren't ever like that to begin with, because it was Northeast was a blue collar working class community for the longest time, and this was a rich neighborhood. That's why these houses over here are nicer for the most part. Like even where I'm at in this neighborhood, they're bigger. They're over here. They're way bigger.
Well, what's the area? The Homestead area. It's the stuff over near Theodore Wirth. And those houses are beautiful.
Yeah, now that's like going over by your place on St. Anthony.
No, it's still west. It's still west.
No, I know, but it's like comparatively, it's like, oh my god, these houses are amazing.
Yeah,
that's when Kate. And I think I told you this before on the last podcast. When Kate and I finally like truly have gotten to our fuck you money level and we come back to Minneapolis, we're moving to Northeast and we're moving to St. Anthony and we're going to be on that fucking parkway. And we've already got a few different houses in mind. Like, and we don't care what it costs.
Mhm.
Like, this is fuck you money territory. We're going to walk up and we're going to be like, we want this house. How much is it going to cost? And
Okay.
we'll probably have to pay a couple million by that point because those fucking houses are crazy.
It depends on how long it takes for you to get fuck you money.
Yeah.
So
At least
they're not that expensive now.
At least another 15, 20 years.
And then they're probably going to be $1 million plus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll be fair market value. That's what I'm saying. In order for me to get it
Yeah.
without somebody wanting to sell, it's going to be a couple million.
Hey, you never know. Hey, someone came up and knocked on my door and said, I'll give you $100,000 over asking price. It's like, let me get my things.
That is just a beautiful neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And you guys escaped the riots.
Yep.
My old neighborhood escaped the riots too.
Yeah.
This place fucking didn't. This was a war zone.
Yeah.
Absolute fucking chaos.
Although we still, because I'm over in Waite Park, basically, is where we're talking about, just west of St. Anthony. It's still Minneapolis, Texas. Thank you very much. But yeah, we were, pulling the trash cans in so they didn't get used for fires and all that. And we were fortunate we didn't see anything.
Well, yeah, and you guys didn't know you were going to escape the riots.
We didn't.
Nobody knew where things were going to go down.
Right.
It's just coincidentally when the fires settled after 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Northeast pretty much escaped. I mean, Central Avenue got hit pretty hard,
Yeah.
like down by the cop shop, but
Yeah. Yeah, but the quarry,
Yeah.
because they boarded up all the windows on the Targets and all the stores down there. And I don't think they had anything. I don't even think they had graffiti.
yeah, they did.
They did?
I remember
okay.
seeing it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, fucking. That was a crazy time, and it was just coincidence. It really did seem like coincidence, and I think logistics, because there's not a lot between downtown and Northeast, and you got to cross all the rivers to get there.
Mhm.
It's like rioters don't want to march 4 miles across bridges and
Yeah,
rivers to get to
takes
the
a while.
next
It takes a
town.
ways to get there.
Yeah, you got to have like a natural progression, unless a demonstration pops off in that area, and then it spider webs out. But still, the way Northeast is built, there's nothing concentrated like Uptown, right? Uptown, there's so much concentrated in that area
Right.
that, oh my God, it unfolded like a wildfire.
Yeah.
In Northeast, it just, now that I think back, logically, it actually makes sense. You
Mhm.
got to cross a river in every direction to get there from
Yep.
any other part of Minneapolis.
Yep.
There's only so many bridges to use. Yeah, and then even when you do, you basically get funneled up, fucking University,
Mm-hmm.
Central, and
35.
yeah. And
That's it.
What are you doing on 35?
Yeah.
Where are you going from there? Industrial Parkway? Or
Mhm.
Industrial Avenue? Like, there's nothing over there.
Right.
Which actually, that's probably where they should have looted, because I think there's an Amazon depot over there. Like,
And there's
that's
certainly
where
the FedEx and the UPS. God knows. It's like mystery package. Yay. Kind of like every time Amazon comes to my house, it's like mystery package. What gift am I getting today?
Speaking of, when you were in LA, did you see the train depot? That's gotten
yes.
famous.
Well, the big one.
The abandoned, where like there's an abandoned train and the entire ground is covered in packages.
No, I didn't see that one.
So
I went to the big regular train depot.
So where the Amazon packages come in on the train.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are jumping and robbing these trains.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just opening the packages and leaving the cardboard right there and just
Mhm.
dipping. And the cops aren't doing anything about it because there's not enough cops.
Right.
And then when they are caught, apparently it's not even that big of a crime anymore. So it's like a couple $100 fine, and then they're
okay.
out the next day.
I'm in the wrong career.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, crime does pay.
Really? It's like, okay, God only knows if it's going to be from Amazon. It could be a box of guitar picks, or it could be something that costs $6,000. You never quite know.
Sounds like a great career.
Yeah,
You just need a place to store it all.
and a little bit of an adventure too.
I'd fucking do it in a heartbeat. What time is your show tonight? You got to get out of here, I know.
Oh, it's late.
Late? Like how
Yeah.
late?
10.
That's
Yeah.
when doors are?
No, the one I
band
want to
you
go
wanna
see.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it is 10. So
Well, we've been going 2.5 hours, man.
Oh,
You want
okay.
to wrap this up?
yeah, sure.
Let's wrap this up. Dude, where can people check out your photos? Where can people contact you to hire you?
Oh, do I have to mention that again? Yeah. But www.bilphoto.com. You can see all of my work. There's an FAQ page that talks about pricing. I know that that's always a popular topic. The thing is, if, like I say on the page, you can afford it. So, if you want to invite me to a show and it sounds cool and I'm not doing anything else, that doesn't always happen. But if I'm not, it's like, I'll come out and shoot your show and I'll give you some freebies. You want to buy a la carte? We can work things out. I do portraiture work. I do senior photos. I do band promo work. I'm pretty open. Like I said, weddings is the one thing just because it's a different skill set. And I want to make sure you get the experience you deserve. So you can check all that stuff out and you can contact me directly from that website.
Awesome. Speaking of band promo, you've been out seeing a lot of new bands.
Mm-hmm.
Give me one band right now that I should have on the podcast because everybody needs to know who they are.
Airship Caravan.
Airship Caravan?
Yep.
All right. Shout out to Airship Caravan. I'm going to hit you guys up, see if we can get you on. I'll probably come check out a show first. But
yeah. Definitely.
For all my shit, if you want to like, subscribe, I would appreciate it. If you're on Twitch, hit the purple follow button. And if you want to follow me on social media, everything's Jared Singer Live. If you hit me up on my personal Facebook page, I will not respond. So, Jared Singer Live if you want to interact with me anywhere. Otherwise, love you guys, appreciate you, and fucking we'll see you next week.